This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
We're here at Daytona International Speedway. It's the Majors Daytona 500 and the pace car heads through NASCAR's 3 and 4. The pace being held by the 25 of John Paquin as we look to get underway for 200 laps worth of action. It's Jake Sperry and Gary Weaver here in the commentary booth as the iRacing Mustang for safety car will now make its way down onto pit road. The wait begins and it's going to be an early jump, green flag, and we are underway at Daytona. 200 laps worth of racing is underway as the line very quickly looks to form here. And Shane Norton second, Adam Fatcher-Ponti third, Matthias Magnussen in fourth as the high line ever so slightly works up, but being left high to dry early on is Joshua Wolf, who's got nowhere really to go in the number 48 machine. But Gary, Daytona, one of the crown jewels of what is oval racing.
Oh yeah, I've raced in this in the NIS side about twice now. I'm going to run for the third time this year.
Trouble, and one going down, and that's Dakota DiCenzo. We stay green. He's down off in the infield, but the 07 into the safer barrier. We are good still for the moment.
And the 07, looking at back on that, looks like he was inside the 280. It looks like the 280 Bradley Salmon had just ever so slightly came up into that driver. So unfortunately, yeah, it was just a little bit of misjudgment of room there, unfortunately. But look how quickly everyone single file is for the most part of this field.
Yes, and this field very much relying on that file action just for the moment, establishing a rhythm, and that's what worries a few people. As now there's a little push here from Riley Thompson trying to go up against this massive train that is starting to form and maybe needs a little bit of help. You normally tend to see maybe 3 or 4 people going up on that high side trying to make a run work on that outside, and it's not the case that nobody will ever run that high side line. That's the only way you're going to see an overtake here today. But really, if you're going up high, you're going to need a few friends today, something Riley Thompson clearly doesn't have here on lap 3.
Yeah, he's got nobody with him at the moment. He's trying to make his way up to his teammate, Dave Walsh, in the 842. They both run the same paint scheme. They're both on the TDR team, so they're going to try and probably work together at some point. But right now, Thompson's going to try and get to the inside if he does have room. Not so much as he's stuck side by side with that 007.
And we're seeing here just a little move up the circuit from your leader at the moment, John Paquin, trying to cover off ever so slightly Shane Norton, who may be thinking about going up high, but really it's almost running a lane and a half at the moment from Paquin, trying to cover off as many options as he has available. But he's got to be really careful about that here, Gary, because if he goes too aggressive on that cover, then he's going to leave that bottom lane open, as he ever so slightly does leave that lane open, not enough though to attack through 1 and 2. If he leaves that lane open, that gives the right for someone like Shane Norton to just pick a nose down the inside, and that's sometimes all that's needed and has been seen to be the major difference, especially when you can't cover it quick enough.
Yeah, it's definitely a major difference. And when you're trying to move out to the top side, like right there, sometimes if, well, in this case, if the 95 try to put a nose in there and the 25 tries to make a protect there to the inside, well, he's going to get himself turned, he's going to get the 95 turned, he's going to get both of them turned. That's something that is not wanting to, I'm pretty sure these drivers do not want that to happen. They're wanting to stick down to the inside lane, especially John Paquin. So hopefully he'll adapt and move back down to the inside. But every time he moves up just ever so slightly, like you mentioned, that could give Norton a chance to get to the inside.
The train is 18 long. Matthew Bunn just finding a way past all this Putecalis there as he tries to run the high side. Trying to get back into the train though is Brendan Philippe, Randall Welch II, Sean Fleming, all of them desperate to try and stay within that 1 second to get onto the train and start pushing. And this is what we're seeing. This train maybe not going the quickest in the world. It's something that has been seen in other major splits. Sometimes the train not quite working out in terms of pace, no willingness to push the driver and draft the driver forward. And really at this early stage, I think drivers aren't willing to get aggressive with others to try and push that train forward. A lot of fuel saving going on in the early stages.
Yeah, of course, it's way too early on to be making any moves. Of course, this is 500 miles, 200 laps, so as I mentioned before that little incident, I've done this twice before, so it's the first time actually watching this race, and from personal experience, yeah, you definitely want to save as much fuel as you can, and stay in the draft as long as possible. Find your friends as soon as possible, and work out a strategy over the radio, and figure out when to pit, and I'll just hopefully make it to the end.
And what we're seeing is maybe a little bit of help for the TDR team on the high side, the ones trying to push the issue. Riley Thompson again goes up high, this time trying to get past last year's Daytona 500's teammate, the Indianapolis 500 winner, Kurt Crum. So Crum at the moment finds himself probably in a good position, just off of the front pack slightly in the sense that he's got maybe a bit of work to do if he wants to go high, but TDR trying to run that high line, trying to find some space, but just in front of that, maybe a few worries here for Dave Walsh, because Joshua Wolf can very easily take away the bottom from him, and just like that, he's freight trained on the outside.
Yeah, I've seen Dave Walsh moving up to the top side and then back down to the inside, trying to keep that position, but unfortunately it's not going to be the case. But on the bright side, though, at what cost, though, is going to be these two drivers finally managing to hook up with each other on the tandem, but unfortunately for the time being, they're probably going to be sent to the back in this case, or at least back to the single file lane, which is, well, a very, very long train, which is pretty much the entire field.
But there is a bit of traffic up high side. That, of course, is Dakota DiCenzo, who's involved in that lap one spin, and he gets a tag of wall, 2 tags of wall, as he goes through 3 tags of wall. Go careful, 3 tags of wall, 4 tags of wall. He's struggling a bit here when it comes to this track, and, well, he's going to have to be incredibly careful. He does not tag that safer barrier even harder than he needs to, and it must be scary being traffic, seeing an entire fleet of these Chevrolets, Toyotas and Fords rushing by.
Oh yeah, especially even if it is single file, the occasional 2 wide cars in the lead pack, that could just really upset you to the point where, or not really upset, but more stress you out so slightly, because you don't want to really mess up their race. So I can understand why the 07 wants to stay to the very top side, even while he has a long train of single file drivers all the way down on the inside.
And look at this top side, it's starting to form up slightly, and it's the teammates of Walsh and Thompson who are starting to make that push on that high side. Track conditions today, 18 degrees in the air, 29 on the track, winds from the southeast, crosswinds at 12 kilometers an hour, which is never ideal when it comes to a track like this. You either want a headwind or a tailwind predominantly. Through the tri-oval, they come along and just working up on the 4th place side of Matthias Magnussen and the Workiva Kinetic car and the Kinetic Racing team. Can there be any opportunity just to make that push? Maybe needs a little bit of help trying to get onto the rear. Maybe it'd be good if Josh Wolf can make that push, or maybe just behind him you got Kurt Crum and Emilio Largo could find themselves up towards the top. It's starting to slightly splinter here at the front of the field, but still a large train coming up, and it is that gap that we're seeing here, David, between David Ebaker and Emilio Largo, which is really where the train is starting to buffet and hurt those who are on the high side.
Yeah, that's really not going to play into their favor as much as they probably want it to. So they're going to have to try and somehow find a way to get either back to the inside, or maybe use that 95 of Norton, as he's also moving up to the top side as well occasionally, trying to follow that 25. I'm actually not surprised why he wouldn't try to make a move to the inside, because again, it is early on. So, oh, never mind, jumping up to the top side already. So it looks like somebody wants to join in on this battle. Is that number 84?
Adam Thatcher Ponce makes the push, and now it's 3. Sometimes moving up takes the momentum away, but this time he made the move earlier enough not to hurt the momentum of Walsh, and now pushes for the race lead for the first time, looking for that change, going high side and getting exactly what he wants, getting past John Paquin and the first change in terms of leading driver here at Daytona. Getting that help, but not as much here from the 3rd car in line, Riley Thompson, who's just that little little ways away, not being willing to help out at the moment as they go incredibly close, almost bumping off of the exit on that high side, as now it becomes a case of push my man. Sometimes it's easier in this early stage to make that push than it does later. Ideally, you want teammates, you want helpers along with you as they go through 3 and 4 once again.
Yeah, as much as you want to work with someone that you may not even know, it's a lot better to work with teammates. But sometimes when you're in this situation where you don't have a teammate in front of you, well, you don't really have a choice. I mean, you do have a choice to just leave them out to dry, but do you really want to sacrifice your position or make somebody mad? Because remember, you're stuck with that person in this race for essentially 200 laps, and we're only in lap number 13, so don't really want to make enemies early on in this race.
You certainly don't, as Mikey Grems becomes the next victim on the lapped traffic train, as now this becomes a really strong push. And that lap traffic did slightly help out, though, on the high side for Faccia Ponti. Was able to pick up a little bit more draft, almost get double lots of side draft to make a way through. And that side draft, maybe not as important now, but a little bit later on in this event, when you have a few teams that are trying to stranglehold the top of the field, you need that side draft. You need to be able to get right down low and almost unsettle the driver on the inside.
Yeah, you just don't want to unsettle them to the point and side draft them to the point where you make contact. I mean, well, that's a major worry about this track, is that, well, you try to side draft somebody, but you're trying to pinch them down at the same time, and the person on the inside doesn't really have anywhere to go. If you're trying to do it in the corner, well, you're going to have to be as careful as possible, because they could get onto that yellow line, onto the apron, and it could really mess up their car. Next thing you know, they're around, or you're involved with them.
And it seems that the train on the outside starts to dissipate, and the work of 3 really didn't work. Being taken away by Riley Thompson, who gets down onto the bottom and really isn't giving that help that's needed. But it seems that this train is starting to splinter out a little bit. Gap between Thompson and Crum, about 0.3 of a second at the moment. A bit of a gap which needs to be clawed back in. Then it's a second train which it goes all the way up using Emilio Largo, David Baker, Marcus Niskanen, Bradley Salmon and Travis Henderson, broken off by Dawson Brock and the Grizzly Motorsports team, who are really targeting this oval this year and really looking to try and find themselves in victory lane as much as they can, or as and when they can. But once more, that train using Thompson on the high side needs to be a little bit more of a push now, as they get once again back up challenging for that race lead. It's almost as if it's cyclic in the way that they've been attacking this high side.
Yeah, they're really trying to do the best that they can and just really hang up onto that top side as much as they want to, essentially, and as much as they can to really get that top side in, wear it in, get some people. Maybe the longer these drivers on the top side are, maybe the ones on the inside will think, well, you know what, they're riding on the top side, I might as well try it out and join them, see what happens. I mean, they do have a few laps to experiment, but, well, Thompson is back to the inside, just trying to keep with the main draft as much as he can.
And just like that, the train gets caught by the likes of Kurt Crum and Emilio Largo and David Baker, and the more that this starts bunching up, the more opportunity for incident comes along, as John Paquin continues to reign supreme at the front of this field as he looks to try and push along that high side, still struggling a little bit, starting to falter, so Thompson goes back up top, trying to give that a little bit of a boost forward, but they're not quite finding exactly what they need. Back of the pack, though, as well, they're having some great battling as well. So, too wide, they're going at the moment. In that pack includes Jared Morgan, Lonnie Finch, Dan Marc Antonio, and Brendan Philippe here. They're trying desperately to stay with the pack in front. A three-car pack, which involves Gabriel Roos, Michael Lane, and Claude Belval, but they're not having much luck at the moment.
And they're going to have to get single file as quickly as possible, because when they all get single file... Well, actually, now that I see... I believe the 282 has a little bit of damage on the front of their car.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So that's definitely going to really mess. So that would explain actually why they're taking up to the top side now and kind of leaving him out to dry. I mean, it's not the best thing. Well, never mind. Right when I say that, diving in front of Morgan as there's a crash.
There is a crash, it's a caution, and it's happened just in front of them. It's involving a couple, Belval involved, Treva Vavrovsky, one of the main people involved in that one. It's happened in the second train. First caution comes after 18 laps, an incident with Hayden Pistorius, I do believe. So you had Vavrovsky there out wide, and Pistorius, who runs high, almost gets very loose with the 77. In fact, there was contact between Pistorius and Mike Golightly, and it seems that Pistorius ends up high in a safer barrier, comes down. Vavrovsky has nowhere to run and to avoid it. The first caution comes out, but crucially only 1 or 2 drivers get a hit, maybe a third as well, as I believe Michael Lane gets a piece of the wall as well. But just like that, the caution comes out, everything will slow down. But the good news for drivers here today is that they do have 1 fast repair available to them. Once they wreck, they've effectively got a T-car, an extra vehicle. They can go out there, have that push, and get back out racing again.
Yeah, I don't really want to use that early on sometimes, unless you do have heavy damage, like I believe it was 62 of Michael Lane it was. Yeah, he has heavy damage, so he's definitely going to be using that fast repair, because his entire front end is pretty much gone, unfortunately. So aside from a few cars I've just gotten really knocked around a little bit, I'd say just repair as much as possible, then use that fast repair later on in the event that you do get involved in a major crash.
Of course, the lucky dog is going to be crucial, and everyone is lining up to take a step onto pit road as they all look to try and find their markers. And the brand new additions to iRacing, the likes of having animated pit crew, when you look to hit your box, you have to be pinpoint accurate now and hitting your marks, and it's actually a lot easier to see exactly where you need to stop in your lane.
Oh yeah, it's my most favorite part of the 842 of Dave Walsh. Well, you just mentioned hitting your marks. Well, unfortunately, he had stopped just a few inches too short of his stop, so he had to move just a little bit. That could mess him up just ever so slightly, as well, 58, his teammate, is directly in front of him, so they'll enter off hopefully at the same time. But drivers that have stayed out, one of them seems to be the 12 of Sean Fleming and the 453 of Mikey Grimes.
Well, it says on Sean Fleming's visor, "I ain't going back." So it seems that he ain't going backwards. He doesn't want to. So Sean Fleming, who did actually overtake the safety car there, trying to go through, he stays out. But in terms of those who have managed to get back out and going again, got a few winners and a few losers when it comes to this line, as John Paquin has seemingly won the chase to get back out going. Norton second. It's Josh Wolf now, though, who finds himself in third. Dawson Brock, though, best on pit road. 5 positions gained by being adaptive on that lane.
Yeah, that's a great job by Dawson Brock to gain 5 positions on pit road. And nonetheless, he started 15th. So he's doing a wonderful job already, just trying to, like you mentioned, just adapt and just try something out on the pit road. It seemed to have worked very, very well.
Certainly has. Now looking to come onto the lane will be the lap traffic of Mikey Graham. So Fleming making the bold decision after 19 laps. He wants some time at the front of the field here at Daytona. He wants to get himself up to the front. He wants to showcase his ability to go out there and prove that he can race. But his opponents probably all have 4 fresh bits of tyres or 4 fresh rubbers on their vehicles, instead of maybe the 2 that would come along maybe a little bit later on in this event. But a bold call to stay out in the early goings. But I think what Fleming is trying to bank on is the philosophy. A caution breeds another caution. And if he can go long enough at the front of this field, he'll be able to find himself a chance to get in and gain a lot of track position when a big one happens.
Yeah, that's definitely not if, that is when, because every time someone is at Daytona, well, the big one always finds a way to appear when you really least expect it or least want it to.
Yes, and that much is very, very true. So Fleming, Paquin, Norton, Wolf, Thatcher, Ponte, your top 5 as things stands, as a lot of drivers now try and find themselves maybe just a breather at the moment. Some of your big gainers in the field, Dan Marcantonio, over the course of this one, is up 20 positions in the 870, so making a good burst forward. Fleming up 27 by deciding that he does not want to stay out here on track. And Gary, this is going to be about teamwork and communication over the course of these 200 laps. They're already a tenth of the way through this event, but they know that this is only the tip of the iceberg. Once you start getting to lap 160, 170, 180, gloves off, you start fighting.
Yeah, you really don't want to work with, well, sometimes you want to work with your teammate, at least until the closing laps appear, but unfortunately, that's not the case. I mean, even teammates have battled each other to the line or pretty much for whatever position in the closing laps. So, like you mentioned, it's all gloves off. It's every man for himself, essentially, in those final laps as the lights on the pace car are now out.
They are now out, so that's going to mean that they will line up double file for this restart, and means that the pace car will be coming down onto the lane. Someone like John Paquin will have to run the outside for the very first time, and maybe this will be a little bit different, where the high side is going to work because of Sean Fleming being at the front of the field, and it looks like everyone is going to try and push as much as they can to get themselves as further forward as we got ourselves continuing to make that run. Those maybe a little bit further down in the order have this chance to push forward, but of course you have to remember there is also that big looming fact of the points. The likes of David E. Baker and Gabriel Roos are tied on points at the top with another driver, Christian Schallner, who is definitely an oval specialist, gets himself into the 2019 eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series draft, which is very good for him, but not in this event today. But Gabriel Roos currently in 19th position, David E. Baker in 14th. They will be looking to try and progress and make some moves in this event a little bit later on. But the pace at the moment behind Sean Fleming, we will see that pace car dive down onto pit road then come the end of this lap as they make their way out of fourth. Pace behind the V-Apex car of Sean Fleming. And when will he go? The answer is going to be early. And here's a green flag. And let's get underway. And that was a very, very slow get-off there by David H. Baker, who drops, Shane Norton, who drops 3 positions, caught napping there off of the start, and they've left a big advantage already in the early goings, running single file incredibly quickly. The only one up on the high side at the moment in your main pack is Dan Marcantonio, who's finding himself in a whole world of issues now. Also heading up high side is going to be Dave Walsh, who's been a perennial high side user, and his teammate once again comes up to help.
Now, I was kind of worried there that Sean Fleming was going to get left out or at least passed on the top side somehow. Everyone decides to just, I'll stay behind him. And I'm not really surprised. Usually, most people want to take to the top side, get around the slower car, but at the same time, you don't really want to make yourself, stuck up on the top of the outside and give the 18 or pretty much the driver in front of you that got a big gap on the restart. You want to give them that advantage to get pushed back up, and the next thing you know, you're stuck side by side and possibly falling back with as quickly as how this field went single file.
And this field isn't going to go as quick as maybe they want to. Who decides they want to go up high? Because it is old tyres versus new at the moment with Sean Fleming. So maybe a run on the high side is going to be a little bit easier in comparison, because those tyres on the 18 will go away a little bit quicker. Again, the teammates working the high side of Thompson and Walsh. They're going to try and make sure that they get themselves forward as possible. Now there's a little look there from about 6th in line about trying to make that push. That's Adam Facciaponti, who does like going up to that high side, does like making that push, but of course there are a lot of drivers in this train who could make moves later on. Matthias Magnussen, Kurt Crum, Marcus Niskanen, who have all stayed quiet, including David H. Baker, not to be confused with David E. Baker, the championship leader, as he's been in 4th position and really doesn't have a teammate to help him in the Grizzly car.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be able to find someone. I mean, ironically, he probably could team up with David E. Baker, but then again, I'm pretty sure the 06 already has somebody to go with. He's just not around him yet, but look at this. TDR teammates still working side by side. The 06 casually just hanging back. He's wanting to let the 58 in, but right now they're making their way on the top side. So that's the interesting part about this top side is, well, pretty much drivers working together, is that you want to let them in, but at the same time you don't really want to lose positions. You don't really want to see other drivers fall back. You want to sort of help them out in a sense. So at this point, those two TDR teammates are going to try and work to the top side, but meanwhile, everyone else is just riding around single file, not really doing anything different as of now.
And surely drivers will want to work that top side a little later on in this event because of the iRacing dynamic track. Everyone running that bottom side, that track at the bottom of the banking will rubber in a lot more than the top side, and as such, when that track gets hot, it's going to be a case of that high line, maybe not by much, but will be fractionally quicker, and it'll be just that little bit easier. But it does need a bit of wearing in at the start of this event, and if drivers can wear in that top side, it becomes an absolutely massive point of contention moving forward in this event here, Gary.
Yeah, it's just going to take a long time for everyone to really get used to, anything that's all single file. Look at the 40, oh goodness, A4 of, oh my goodness. Well, that's one way to cool down your engine. Not really the, well, it is the best way, essentially. I mean, it's better than going below the double yellow line, but my goodness, A4 just went shot down to the inside, so he's really got to be careful on cooling down his engine. Maybe let off the throttle just ever so slightly is usually the best idea.
And cooling down that engine, he's just trying to run high, and I think he was waiting for this push that's been coming along that high side. It's been very slow and very documented, but it has been methodical, and Fatchaponti again trying to take that momentum being pushed by Walsh and by Thompson and get his own run, use his own agenda, and this is what we have been seeing here. Fatchaponti running that high side, and if there's any time that you want to get forward and get past someone, it's now because of Fleming dictating pace at the front of the field. Also got a bit of too wide, a little bit further back. Someone else trying to make the line work is going to be a certain, I believe, Emilio Largo getting past David E. Baker on the bottom in his Ford, the CQR Club Ford, but it's that black Chevrolet that is managing to just get into line and get another position up forward through the field.
I'm actually surprised he's not moving down to the inside to really try and get any slipstream and stay. Well, never mind. Now he goes to the inside. So I was about to say, if he's going to stay to the top side and try and somehow find his way on this lonesome to get up there, well, it's not really going to work out. So he stopped back to the inside, and look at this. The cloud cover here at Daytona could be starting to play into effect. It was a little bit more the last time around. So the longer the cloud covers.
And we've got ourselves just a little... I apologise, ladies and gentlemen, we've just had a couple of issues with the proceedings here at the moment, but we are here and we are live at Daytona International Speedway. I'm Jake Sperry, joined with Gary Weaver, Paul Smith on cameras for this one. But Gary, we've had one caution, 31 laps through this event we've gone, and at the moment it is Sean Fleming who's decided not to come in and pit through the first caution, who leads this field and has led ever since that caution has come off. But for the time being, it's been about who's going to try and work their way up to make the train on the high side work. It's been the same three that's been pushing Fatchaponti, Walsh and Thompson, trying to make the high line to their advantage.
Yeah, Fatchaponti has jumped up to the top side in front of those two TDR teammates, and, well, unfortunately for, TDR in a sense, their teammate is all the way back in 28th at 921 with Han Pastoria, so he's probably just going to stay riding in the back there for the time being. As well, we did have just a small bit of cloud cover for about a lap or two, but I was going to say that the cloud cover is essentially, and the longer that lasts, the more the track could cool down, the more that some drivers could start to have their cars actually work out properly. But of course, that cloud cover is now gone. So that's the fun part about iRacing now, is that you don't know how long that cloud cover is going to last.
And of course that cloud cover cools down the track and maybe makes it a bit more slippery, a bit quicker, maybe just pushes that momentum. And some drivers will have different tyre pressures that work in maybe slightly different conditions, partly cloudy. Sometimes you do set up that car maybe with slightly lower pressures to try and work when the cloud cover comes over, but not much of a difference I don't think you are going to be finding. But we have, as we said, had one caution so far today, that one being caused by the aforementioned driver in 28th position, Hayden Pastorius, getting involved with a tap with Mike Golightly, who is in 20th position right now. Golightly himself has gained 12 positions right now. This is currently being classed as a train of 27 at the front of the field.
Yeah, it's not really the best time, but unfortunately, another driver that was also involved in that is 62 of Michael Lane, who, as I'm looking around for him, he has used his fast repair, so he's really going to be understandable for laying in the back. He's working with two other of his teammates on Fords as well, so it's pretty interesting to see. So they're riding very in the back. They're off and separated from the main pack, which is a very smart move in that case.
Yes, and if you do have that damage, maybe just try and work your own lane and make sure you get your own work. But what we are seeing here is that nobody's wanting to help Thompson and anyone up on the high line. Someone like Marcus Niskanen, for example, he's got his teammate just in front of him there, and that is, just behind Kurt Crum, You've got Marcus Niskanen in front, and it's Crum's non-willingness to get up there and to help that we're going to see. And I think drivers are wanting to run that bottom because their teammates are in that train at the front, and it's almost like cycle. If you've got someone up there at the front doing all the work, there's no reason to go out there and help and support effectively the breakaway or the chase up on the high side.
Yeah, it's not really Riley Thompson doing the same thing he's done earlier, just goes back to the inside and tries to stick with the top side as well. So he's definitely torn between trying to help out his teammate and staying with the lead pack, not trying to fall back. No rhyming intended, of course. And look at that. The 842 and the 84 had a little bit of a shot down the front back straightaway, and they're going to be even, at least. Fachaponti's going to be slightly even with the 48 of Joshua Wolf on the low side in second. But for the time being, though, that's not really going to work out as much.
No, it's been very well controlled at the front by Sean Fleming. He hasn't done anything too brash, too brave. He's just been controlling that pace at the front. But it seems that because he hasn't come down in and made that stop, you have to remember, he will have to come down. If this stays green for a full green flag cycle, it will have to be Fleming who comes down and gets away. But what he will have, though, is fresh rubber to attack for about 15, 18 laps or so, that he will be able to get advantage over the rest of the field. It will be that advantage that gets him the track position over the course of this one if we do go to a green flag stop.
Yeah, green flag stop could be the most interesting part of this race and the most crucial as well. It's a lot more crucial than the cautions because, well, next thing you know, if you mess up ever so slightly on the green flag pit stop, that's going to hurt you a lot more because you're going to be losing track position and, well, just a lot more time on pit road. So it's better to mess up on pit road under caution than it is in a green flag stop.
And what's telling is that the pace at the moment from what was the opening stint compared to the second has surprisingly picked up. Fastest lap by Kurt Crum, for example, was done on his 31st lap of 43.7. And a lot of these drivers getting their fastest laps here on this second stint, which is showing that Fleming is not waiting around to save fuel. He's wanting to push an agenda forward as now looking up topside once more. Fachaponti trying to push, and that 2 or 3 that we've consistently seen up on that high side has been working well. Maybe if they just had one more to help, that would be a little bit more of usefulness. But we've seen how drivers maybe a little bit further back are not seeing that topside work. Look at Emilio Largo, who is up by David Baker at one stage, David E. Baker, and now look at him. He's dropped all the way back behind Aldis Puteklis, and he's being utterly freight trained.
And he still is by the number 100 Lyndon Swaby, and now he'll get down to the inside finally. And, well, not anymore. He is going to be freight trained, thankfully for him. But unfortunately, he's lost many positions, like you had mentioned. So pretty much from the top of the field all the way down to was now looking at the timing about 23rd, unfortunately. So you did mention some drivers going up to help. Well, it could be a few of these drivers on the inside, but I can understand why they don't want to move up to the top side early on. I mean, it could be for experimenting, but I mean, it might as well stay on the inside. So there's just a little bit of a coordinating effect there, and that's another thing that you don't really have as much on the top side.
John Paquin there was having a little half look to go up high side, decided better against it at the moment as Facciaponti once more moves alongside, trying to take a bit of the draft away on the side and make that charge up forward. But for the time being, just not able to get enough coming out of the tri-oval and into 1 and 2, where they will be disadvantaged on that high side, trying to get that push and making it happen. And once more, they will have to sit in line, and this is what we have been seeing over the course of these majors races. Drivers maybe not in the early stages wanting to push out the envelope too much, maybe just satisfied with staying on that low line, just having consistency, getting through this race, more rather than trying to do something wild and end their race early and their chances early.
Oh yeah, I'd rather get through the race first rather than actually try and just make a desperate move to the outside, maybe try a 3-car tandem at first. So that could be why the 58 is laying back ever so slightly, because he doesn't want to interfere, and Thompson doesn't want to interfere with the with Walsh and Facciaponti, I should say, with both of them, because having a 3-car tandem is just a little bit more dangerous than having a 2-car tandem, especially if the car that's directly behind you pushes the car in the middle, and next thing you know, the car in front may get turned around. All three may get turned around, so it's better to really just experiment, lay back a little bit, and not really do anything too dangerous.
And of course, it's that ability not to do anything dangerous. Is going high, is Fleming struggling, going low, arcing down onto pit road. There's the jump, 42 laps he goes, and does he make the line? Oh, he was very, very late on the brakes, locking them up. Almost Arca style as he was trying to get himself on the lane. And has he missed his box? Yes, he has. And just like that, Fleming's work is now going to be even more hard cut.
And he's the only driver in pit road as well, so that's really going to put him at a heavy disadvantage. But same with the overshooting the pit box as well. That's also putting him at a heavy disadvantage. It makes sense they want to get down the pit road as quickly as possible, but even if you're changing tires, you don't want to lock up those brakes, because he almost went into the grass for that one.
He almost did, and that would have been an infringement of coming onto pit road, and that would have been another at least 15 seconds. He would have been waiting on the lane as he does get himself back out and going again. But watch now as the pack is going to fly on by as he's on the apron. Everyone else just zooming by at a good 200 miles an hour around this Daytona track, over 320 kilometers an hour for those in Europe. But this is what we're seeing here. Drivers now need to start wondering, okay, that's probably the cue. We've got about 15 laps here in terms of our tanks of fuel, which are allowing us to go. This is where drivers are now going to start positioning themselves. Do you dare go high side now, looking to try and get that extra one position, or when do you decide to start angling down to the bottom to make sure you've got best possible track position for pit road?
Yeah, the best track position for pit road is always to the inside. So TDR teammates are now left alone as Facciaponti moves down to the inside. So it would be understandable that Thompson and Walsh stay on the top side, but they're the only drivers that have been working this top side early on in this race. So props to them. They're trying to find some ways to work together, and this is definitely one way, but not really the best way if pit stops are going to be happening soon. They're wanting to get down to the inside as soon as possible. It's the 777 of Kurt Crum. He lets a little bit of an opening happen, but looks like they're not taking that opening.
And enough, so that does start to splinter up the team slightly. They have another charge up on the top, as there has been just a few openings here and there over the course of this one. For example, over that last lap, David White in the 173 had a bit of a gap, but he's closed down to the 55 machine, piloted by Brian Barney here, and his vehicle also says, I ain't going back, and that maybe is the V-Apex mantra at the moment. They don't want to go backwards in this field, they're only looking forwards, and while the best way to gain those positions is going to be in this pit stop cycle. And what's going to be even more crucial is those who have been in the pack saving fuel will be deciding exactly when they want to come down in. The one thing you do want coming off a pit road though is that also important partner to tango with.
Yeah, coming onto and off of pit road is key, especially when you're hoping that the driver that you're working with, essentially, sometimes teammate, sometimes just a friend, sometimes just a random driver overall. You want to hope that they just ace their pit stop and you enter, or at least exit out of pit road together, or at least relatively close, just not to the point where you're about massively behind by about a second or two with no help in between.
It's that help in between that sometimes becomes incredibly key to the way that you try and run this event. The train, of course, goes all the way back to Brendan Philippe, who is in 25th position. Small little splinter, though, at Aldis Puteklis in the 666, trying to stay within range of Gabriel Roos in 19th. That gap is 0.4 of a second. Something like 0.4 can be closed over the course of maybe 1-2 laps if the front of the pack isn't working effectively. But anything outside of half a second, and then you're really working hard to try and claw backwards if the pack isn't working out in your favour, outwards to a second, and you're effectively being dropped as the second pack massively have by a good 6 seconds, maybe even 9 if you get to Lonnie Finch.
Yeah, it's going to be very crucial as moving in between the TDR teammates is having Facciaponti, but you are correct in that sense. But, well, Facciaponti has decided, okay, well, I've had enough of running at the front. Let me push you now, he says to Dave Walsh. And Thompson is still just laying back. So Thompson's not really he's doing a great job at just laying back and not really trying to push the issue, quite literally and figuratively as well. So he's taking a little bit more of a distance on the top side, just sticking with in case anything happens. He's just around the general area of his teammates. So that's a very smart move there.
Almost as if he's back up as and if Dave Walsh needs it. And well, what has been very, very key about Dave Walsh is that he had a very good run in the Ignite series, which got him to runners-up position, but they now have to get past Dakota DiCenzo, who has gone down in and made a stop already. But this is what we have been seeing here. Drivers are just waiting for that moment to pounce onto pit road. Maybe this is where everyone looks to set up. And what has been key in that setup is that you look at your top 5 at the moment. They have remained undeterred from that bottom line, apart from Facciaponti. The 4 that we're looking at is, of course, John Paquin, Joshua Wolf, David H. Baker, and Shane Norton. 4 different teams represented inside of the top 4. And P1 Sim Racing, you've got Talk Creek Racing, Grizzly Motorsports, and that V Apex Motor Racing Sport group. They are finding themselves all with a nice piece of the pie at the front.
Yeah, so it's pretty understandable why, excuse me, it's pretty understandable why some of these drivers don't really want to exactly work with each other, but they're working with each other enough to at least stay within the top 4 all single file, even though they're on different teams. So sometimes teams do run strong through these drivers, and they're thinking, well, this person's of a different team, so I won't really work with them on the top side, but at least be around here just so I can keep my position here at this part of the track. So through the trial of the cloud cover is pretty heavy. Now it is, well, pretty much non-existent essentially. So again, it's just passing through ever so slightly. So I'm wondering if we would get any longer stretches of cloud cover here and just slightly cool down the track, as it's still there over in the trioval.
Yes, and it's about that cooling of the track, which I think a lot of drivers are thinking about. A little bit of a breakaway now as Christian Rose is struggling to stay with Emilio Largo in this 22nd, 23rd battle. It was 0.6 of a second over the line. It's starting to fall the wrong direction for Rose. A Rose, by any other name, would be just as sweet at this stage, but at the moment, it seems that 0.6 of a second is the worry. Being dropped from the train is the worry for the championship, the co-championship leader.
Yeah, being dropped from the you definitely need help as much as possible to get back up to the main pack, unless it is a plan to really stay just a few seconds back, not even a few seconds rather, but a few tenths of a second back. Like you mentioned, just about 0.4 seconds or less is usually the key. Anything half a second or over, well, you're pretty much done for the day in terms of keeping up with the main pack. So looking at the back on the interval actually, and it seems to be about just about 0.4 seconds it seems, but nonetheless, yeah, just about 0.4, 0.5 seconds in between. So really needs help to stay with that pack, and well, the more you can stay with that pack, the more you have a chance at keeping your track position for the most part during pit stops.
Well, if they've managed to claw back a tenth of a second, then they're going about this the right way with Christian Rose out the front. Still no takers yet onto pit road. Lap 54 here at Daytona International Speedway of 200 in the 500-mile race. This 2.5-mile oval. Absolutely fantastic action that you see in restrictor plate racing. A little bit more different to the likes of your traditional NASCAR racing, where it's about trying to make sure you keep that consistency up. You are either on 100 or 90% throttle the entirety of the way through. The moment you touch the brake around here, goodbye. We'll see you back at the back of the train.
Yeah, especially at Daytona, pretty much any super speedway. So in this case, small Daytona, where it's very different. It's very interesting to see the difference as well. But as much as these drivers can keep up, especially to see how much these drivers can keep up on the top side with pretty much only 3 cars as compared to an entire train right behind them, it's very interesting that they're not getting freight train for the time being, as Thompson is managing the top side and low side still in between that 47 and 777.
Yeah, and he's just trying to make that bridge between the divide as such. He wants to be out there helping his teammates on the high side, but at the same time, he doesn't want to sacrifice his track position by being left up there too long. He's lucky in the fact that he's got a little bit of a pocket to work with here between Kurt Crum and also Marcus Niskanen, the Finnish driver. But what has been very crucial in the way that this race has been run for Riley Thompson is that he hasn't been too aggressive by taking both lines. He hasn't been chopping off the nose, but a caution comes out right before the green flag pit stop, so we will pit under caution. And looking backwards, it's Randall Welch II who has been involved in this one, as it was a 2-car incident, and it was the teammates, Claude Belval getting a tap through the corner from the 62 machine of Michael Lane, who seemingly can't stay out of trouble.
And unfortunately, those were between 2 teammates, and Michael Lane, just more bad luck, turns the 56 of Claude Belval unintentionally around. And I did mention Michael Go lightly having a few issues. Man, hard shot to the 868 off of turn number 4, and he was avoiding that wreck. I think, yeah, he just moved way too high, unfortunately. Bradley Solomon got a little piece of that accident as well. And, well, just a lot of bad luck for a few drivers here.
Yeah, and Claude Belval, this is why drivers need to be careful about how they bump draft, because there for Claude Belval, with help from Michael Lane, a touch in the middle of 3 could really upset that vehicle, and that's what we saw, just that upsetting of the vehicle, which meant for a hard snap into the safer barrier, and arguably one of the more dangerous issues and one of the more dangerous hits that you'd see out on track. The second caution comes on lap 56.
That's definitely just unfortunate, but that's why it's just unfortunate that you try and just follow the person in front of you, misjudge the distance, next thing you know, you turn them around.
Yes, and we're just going to see then who's going to dive down to pit road. I'd assume everyone, because they're all going to be low on fuel. The question now becomes actually for someone a little bit further down in the pack, someone like maybe Sean Fleming here, who is actually classified as a lap down. He's going to gain that lap back, but what he's not going to be able to do is gain those positions back. So effectively a free stop is going to be there for him. But right now, it just means that everyone's going to be diving down into that lane, looking for their boxes and trying to be that big gainer like Dawson Brock was a little bit earlier on. Last box in line then for John Paquin, who looks to hit his marks and try and make sure that he gets himself out and away first. He has that advantage being the closest on the lane to that pit exit. That would mean that he'll be getting out earlier. 4 tyres then on, I think, everybody's vehicle. Off and away goes Josh Wolf, but he's just only going to get second. David H. Baker snipes third away, but really not much change. The only thing you can say is Marcus Niskanen has got himself ahead of Thatcher Ponte, and it's a poor stop by Kurt Crum standards here, as Dave Walsh has managed to make sure that he's kept himself ahead in that situation. But what we're going to do here on RaceSpot TV is step aside very briefly, because we'll be back with more action here at Daytona after this.
It's time for the drivers to head themselves down to the starting grid for this, the 24 hours of Daytona. They've got themselves about 30 seconds to make sure they are ready on the grid and ready. can say a lot of things sometimes when these special events come along, but what we can say is we have got a race for the ages.
We're back here at Daytona. We are 1 to green here as we look to get ourselves going on lap 61 out of 200. 2 cautions today, 1 medium-based run, 1 long-based run. We haven't yet seen a green flag pit stop as of yet, and it has been a little bit of unluckiness, shall we say, towards the rear of the field that has been causing the cautions. It's been a very well-behaved Daytona 500 so far for 2 cautions. Jake Sperry, Gary Weaver here in the commentary booth for this one. John Paquin back with the pace at the front of the field. He started this one on pole position, but look at the man who is on the outside, Joshua Wolf for Talk Freak Racing. He has found himself out there and gaining good positions. He's gained 6 inside your top 10. Your biggest gainer is Marcus Niskanen on the outside of row 3. He's up 12 places so far today, but the iRacing Mustang safety car dives down onto pit road. Pace goes early from John Paquin, and we're green once again here, Gary, at Daytona.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. And side by side already are David H. Baker and Joshua Wolf. Question is, who's going to go? Well, there's the question answered, as just behind them, the 47 just decided, you know what, instead of going to the top side, I'm going back to the low side. And, well, Riley Thompson is thinking otherwise. He goes in front now of Dave Walsh with his teammate, as right now it's going to be Joshua Wolf, even with the second place driver on the inside of David H. Baker. Oh, this is going to be sketchy because top side, they're going to be making this 3 wide. This is way too early on to be aggressive.
Well, TDR have an agenda, and they're going to use it as they go up high, which they did not want to sit and wait, and now they bunch up and bottleneck at 3 wide, and now Josh Wolf looks to find a lane. Thatcher Ponte now moves up high. It's a mad scramble. This is what you'd see with 10 to go here at Daytona. Don't push this out on lap 62 as they look to go uber high once again and still try and steal that side draft right up against the safer barrier, but it's going to backfire for TDR, and they're going to drop back down the track to the second lane. And this is where I think that was tactical disadvantage, not willing to push the envelope, not willing to help out those in front. Thatcher Ponte is able, in all of this, has been able to snipe away around the 48 of Josh Wolf, but it does now mean that David H. Baker now inherits second place.
And I understand trying to, well, there goes down to the inside. My goodness, down to the inside was Joshua Wolf, so he's decided, you know what, I'm going to head back down to the inside now. And well, I get trying to work things out early on, but that just didn't work out. They're going to go for it again. I don't think it's the best idea because Thompson again scrapes the wall in turns 1 and 2. The first time they tried that and still creating sparks, they're just falling back even more instead of working with the 84 there at Fasciaponte. So they're going to have to work together instead of trying to get to the top side because they're just ultimately causing their own demise by falling back. And now it's top 4 that's clear single file.
And now they're starting to worry about, well, how far will I fall? Because there's ever so slightly a gap for David E. Baker and Brian Barney. That may be the place where they decide to start dropping backwards in with a big hole that they can find themselves in. But really, it's that unwillingness to work together and trying to force it here at Daytona, which is not going to work. You do need to work with vehicles that aren't your teammates from time to time. That much has to be known and is known, and you have to make your alliances out here on circuit. And sometimes if you're not going to make that alliance, if you're not going to make sure that you're working hard to get yourself back into this race, then you're only going to go one place, and that's backwards through selfishness.
Yeah, if you try it way too early on, I mean, now it's going to be the top 5 that's clear of all of the inside for the most part. Oh my goodness. Shane Norton somehow, some way slid up and didn't make any contact whatsoever. That's going to cause the inside lane to break up ever so slightly. So these guys on the top side, they got a little bit of a break there with that, but at what cost? Because they almost got wrecked there off the floor.
And that was Shane Norton just clipping the apron there, heading through 3 and into 4, and that caused the big check-up, and just like that, the train has broken between Norton now and Dave Walsh at the back of this train. So it's a breakaway at the front of 8, 5 and 3 they're looking at on the top side, and Norton's got to work hard to bring everybody else back into play on this one. Drivers trying to work out where they need to be on circuit after that one, and that apron, it is high when you get there, and just ever so slightly clipping that apron where it goes from bank to flat really does unsettle the vehicle. Caution comes out though, number 3 here at Daytona. They're wrecking in the back. Michael Lane involved for the 3rd time, Lonnie Fitch this time, and Jared Morgan dissipates down to the infield. It is the big one, and it happened with 3 wide.
And looking at it, looks like, yeah, Sean, well, it looks like Michael Lane got just a bit too aggressive as the 18 misjudged the distance and collected, I believe, almost all of his teammates. Claude Belval got a piece of that, so pretty much about 4-car incident at some point, about 5 getting a small piece of that. The 07, I believe, was one of the very few lucky ones because, well, he had a little bit of bad luck early on and almost had some more there.
And that was just the case of Michael Lane slowly coming down the track through a tri-oval, and I have to say that Fleming did hold the line, and it has seemed to me that that team has not had much help at all, and it seems that whatever they can do, that Can-Am Racing team are just not loving Daytona at the moment, at the back, involved in incidents, and just like that, a caution comes out here on lap 67 of this event. So the 3rd caution comes along. It's all been in the back that we've been seeing it, but what that does do is give a respite to those who are effectively checking up in the early goings. For Shane Norton, it's a sigh of relief because anything that he wanted to do was not lose the train, and he was in danger of getting to that point.
And I was in very much danger of losing pretty much everything at that point on the top side. So you just everyone just has to be very careful around here, not make aggressive moves. It's great to experiment, but at what cost will it hurt you early on in this run?
Yes, you have to make sure that you are precise with the way that you're making those moves. Now, here comes the question. Drivers are probably going to come down onto the lane. They haven't really put too much time on the tyres and actually know. A lot of drivers deciding they're not going to come in. Thompson comes in and Walsh comes in, and Walsh has a huge moment coming on the lane. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Just about manages it there. That one could have ended disastrously. So a couple of drivers, maybe those a little bit further back in the pack, Christian Roses and David White, are going to come in and make those stops. But here's a conscious tactical decision coming in from the TDR boys. They want to get themselves free of position as they look to go through as this lane has been in on all 3 cautions and used or been involved in the causation of all 3 cautions.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that Michael Lane just can't catch a break whatsoever. Unfortunately, not really the best 500 for him onwards. The first caution, he had his entire front end destroyed, used the faster pair there, and he doesn't have one now since he used it the first time. So he's going to be in pit road for a little bit, trying to repair the car as much as possible. As far as Lonnie Fitch, well, he's still smoking on pit road, so his engine is still heavily smoking, heavily damaged. I'm pretty sure that he does not have a faster pair to use either.
No, I don't think he does, but what's very crucial is that we have some split strategy going on now here at Daytona, and what we will be able to do right now is just step aside very briefly here after caution number 3 here at Daytona International Speedway. We will be back with more action here as we head towards the halfway stage here at this fantastic Florida Oval.
To the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's going to pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's going to get them all done with. What amazing!
To the inside goes Logan Cloudman is going to touch in. Pit press. What a save!
Look to the outside as Trunke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though. Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe. Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
3 cautions in, John Paquin still in charge at the front of the field, but now drivers starting to think about split strategy as we head over the 1/3 distance marker and towards the halfway stage. We'll start back off on lap 71 as the iRacing Mustang safety car dives onto pit road. Paquin again goes early, green flag drops, and let's get underway here at Daytona once again. And it was David H. Baker who had a very slow start in comparison. It's allowed Marcus Niskanen on that low side to work. 3 to the top, trying to make something happen. A big break back to Shane Norton, who left about 3 acres worth of room then to the pack at the front.
Yeah, that's not going to help them out in the long run, but then again, it could help. But look at this top side. My goodness, David H. Baker, top side, with help from behind the 48 of Joshua Wolf, but he's not going to go down to the inside early on and make an aggressive move to that lead. I'm pretty sure he wants to bring the 48 of Wolf with him, but understandably enough, he's not going to take to that low side. He's wanting to try and help get that top side in. Dawson Brock has other ideas as he moves in behind that number 84 back down to the inside, and just like that, 2 cars on the outside of the line near at the front.
And that's going to be Freight Train City if they're not too careful. Dawson Brock, of course, the teammate to David H. Baker, maybe wanted a little bit of that help, and again, just maybe thinking about going high side, not finding it as a little bit of traffic comes down on the oval. No harm, no foul there, but really it's that high side that is trying to be worked in, and drivers having that reluctance to go up there and to force an issue up top, not wanting to get dirty in the opening half of this event. And right now, a nice little hole opening there between Dawson Brock and co, which both of these drivers were thinking about slotting in. Wolf decides he wanted to, and then finally slotting in goes David H. Baker. Now it's Emilio Largo, who has been having a tendency to go to the top side. He's going to try and push the issue all on his merry lonesome.
Yeah, it's not exactly the best idea for that 007 who almost gets unintentionally doored by Shane Norton. He's not having a lot of luck for Shane Norton. He's not having a lot of luck as of late for staying on the inside lane. That apron is deadly, but as far as Emilio Largo, he's not going to be too happy because he's going to be finding out that he's going to fall straight to the back once again. At the moment, though, that seems to be quite the opposite, but he can only hang on up there for so long.
Can only get up there for so long, but we'll see what Largo can do. The closest that I've seen was Stephen Baxter just pushing against the machine against Torque Freak 1 year ago here in the European Majors. He's got to try and get past Dan Marc Antonio if he wants to get himself a little bit of a gap, but no one is in the right position to do so. A few Grizzly boys up the top, a little bit further back, trying to push the high side. Travis Henderson and Trevor Pavlovsky are both trying to use that line to get Grizzly Motorsports vehicles up there. They've got 2 inside the top 6. If they get 3 or 4 up there and starts to make that push, you can start seeing that mechanical push through the field to use the high side to the advantage, and you may get a few stragglers like Thatcher Ponte, for example, who would want in on the action.
Yeah, a few stragglers definitely do want in on that action on the top side, but unfortunately, it's not really going to do much for the time being, but there's just a lot of drivers that really want to try and make that top side work. One of them being now it's all 3 of the TDR drivers, Dave Walsh, Riley Thompson, and finally Hayden Pastorius, who's getting brought back from the back portion of the field. So that could be why that Walsh and Thompson had pitted earlier, trying to work with their teammate, just trying to fall back. They could work with the 007 of Largo if they do decide to stay behind him and not push the issue and go 3 wide.
Well, they've got to get up to Emilio Largo, and that's going to be the key. Largo is hoping that TDR wants to make that push, but what we've seen from TDR is that they've had no willingness really over that last stint to want to push. They've wanted to go 3 wide when they have had Travis Henderson at the not Travis Henderson, when they've had Riley Thompson at the front of that pack. But at the moment they've got Dave Walsh, who's a little bit more conservative, I'd probably say more experienced as well in terms of pushing right at the highest level at the pointy end of these sorts of races. So you can see they've already caught up to Largo, and they're going to force their way down to the inside. This is brave, going 3 wide like this, effectively siphoning off Largo from the rest of the pack, and that was very well played by David Walsh and trying to get through. Largo's going to have nowhere to go on that inside, so they force it 3 wide. Largo is stuck with nowhere to go, and he'll drop to the back. Look at the push coming in from TDR, who are going to now start fighting at the front with the fresh tyres.
Yeah, they did make a great strategy call there. The move to make it 3 wide was just a little bit, I have to word this properly, probably just sketchy in general, but then again, anything at Daytona, even so much as 2 wide is a little bit sketchy when you're trying to side draft somebody, but they have some great momentum. That's Thompson. I thought he was going to accidentally turn Dave Walsh there for a few moments off of turn number 2 there, but they're managing to hang on to it, and they're finally challenging for the lead as they have caught up to John Paquin.
And they've got the help on the high side. It's 6 up top, which is really helping out. And Paquin now having to just play that game. Maybe he doesn't have the tyres, but once you hit that air, it's just going to be that case of buffering. But it seems that the team is working good. Astorius, of course, involved in the opening caution. Dave Walsh, for the first time today, picks up a lap lead and goes through 1 and 2, almost getting an entirety of an overlap. But you can see on that inside how Paquin just pulls it back to equal alongside Marcus Niskanen as well. Don't count him out. He's had a fantastic day so far, just slowly pulling up those positions. It's Pastorius, the biggest gainer, from 30th all the way up to 5th, and all of that down to the fact pitting on that last stop, getting the tyres, and after a caution early on by lap 78, he's challenging at the front of the field too.
Yeah, it's a great strategy, but we're going to see how long these guys can last and if they work together in the second half of the race, the closing laps of the second half as well. Because, well, like you mentioned earlier on about laps 160, 170, 180, that's basically when everyone starts to go every man for themselves. So it's going to be quite interesting to see if these drivers decide to work together or they just decide to put themselves over their teammates just for this one race.
And now the train just starting to dissipate slightly, just a little bit of issues then as they lose the backing from the back of the pack, and now it's only 4, probably the minimum you could use to push forward, but now there's just that little bit of a hole there being left by Dawson Brock, which is enticing for drivers to come in. Now Thatcher Ponte decides to move up high and he wants in on the action. Now you start worrying here for the likes of Niskanen and Paquin, who are going to be losing out as the train now looks to form once more at the front, and Thatcher Ponte decides he wants to go aggressive through 1 and 2. Doesn't quite have the overlap just yet, but now this is where TDR have been maybe a little bit frustrated over the course of today. Thatcher Ponte has been the spanner in the works, stopping the machine from functioning.
And on that machine of the 84, it does say unorthodox, so not exactly unorthodox to really take to the top side, make it a little bit of an advantage. You can see the 842 of Walsh. He wants to move to the inside, and he's going to only have to decide quickly because, well, Thatcher Ponte's going to protect. Now they're going to be stuck middle, and if they make it 3 wide, this could be deadly. They're going to have to move to the inside or stay up top, and they're going to have to make that decision as quickly as possible.
Well, the 3 want to work as a team. They don't want to splinter that off, and Thatcher Ponte has been running the middle line there, covering everything off, and he's just been playing that game against the team. Either they've got to break up and make a 2-pronged attack, or they're going to have to work it. Trouble, Paquin and Niskanen as well into the wall. Caution comes out.
Oh, the 10 as well and the 14 of Gabriel Rouge make contact on the back straightaway in the infield afterwards.
Oh, and that one you have to say falls on Niskanen, who was up high, maybe had some slight help from Emilio Largo. I don't think that he did, but just came down a little bit too low, coming off the apron, tags the rear quarter panel, and bang, both of them get involved in the incident. Paquin largely unscathed from that incident, not really too much damage at all, just a small tap into the wall, but it was the spin of Niskanen which causes the caution, and it's the 4th caution in 82 laps that we have seen. But my goodness me, we were starting to get a little bit dicey at the front, and just like that, from about 5th, 6th on back, bang, there comes a caution.
And the 10, that's Trevor Vevrovsky, and the 14, they were checking up, made contact. Unfortunately, the 14 of Rouge unintentionally, of course, turns around the 10 when they were trying to check up and move out of the way for that incident. So it's just a little bit of misjudgment there, but that was just, in a way, a secondary incident that happened when they were trying to avoid that.
And they've managed to go about a good 10-12 laps over the course of that stint. Now, this is where the next question comes in. who dives in. We've seen how Walsh, Thompson and Pistorius decided they wanted to come in last time and get that strategy call. Fittipaldi angling down onto pit road. Does he decide to throw the dummy here and stay out once more? I don't think that would be a wise decision, but it seems that practically everyone's going to decide then to come down in and make that stop in your top 10, 15, probably top 20 as well. So now it's a battle of pit crews here at Daytona.
Yeah, like I said, just mentioned earlier on in this race, it's good to mess up, but not too much, of course, under a caution. Under green, you want to be as smooth as possible. 84 Fittipaldi smooth into his pit box, as well as the 33, the 4, the 25, not so much. Same with the 95, Shane Norton. He overshot his pit box ever so slightly. He had to back off. The 25, John Paquin, has a little bit of damage. He uses his fast repair, but he and the 95 are going to be actually taking right sides only for the 25, so definitely trying to get off pit road as soon as possible.
Well, right side's only, and he undershot his box as well, so maybe the right side's the call because of that undershooting, and he gets himself out behind Joshua Wolf as the 870 over the course of that stop managed to gain a whole multitude of positions, up a good 10 spots overall. So it seems that Mark Antonio making a good call then on 2 tyres, trying to get himself up there to push. And I wonder, with just how quickly Fittipaldi got out and away, whether he went for the 2 tyre call too, because there's Largo now second in the train, then David H. Baker, then Dave Walsh. So differing strategy right now between 2 tyres and 4 here at Daytona. So this one's just going to be one to keep an eye out on over the course of the rest of this next stint. But we're going to step aside very briefly here on RaceSpot TV, because there'll be more action coming to you after this.
Is $10,500 richer. 2-time NASCAR is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR 2017 NASCAR Beginner Series Championship to Ryan Luza. Fella is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Beginner iRacing Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Break up at the front of the field then as we get back going on lap 86 here at Daytona International Speedway. The pace behind Adam Facciaponti for the very first time, but the difference now is who took 4, who took 2, and who can work together up at the top of the field. It is all changed as the iRacing Mustang safety car dives down onto the lane. Green flag goes for Adam Facciaponti, who goes very late, even later than the green flag, and just like that, David H. Baker on the bottom manages to steal a position away. Dan Marcantonio now starts to try and find his push as well as the top side slow with Largo, and Largo maybe just looking to find himself a little bit quicker if he can.
And meanwhile, well, Riley Thompson, the 48 of Joshua Wolf, and that's pretty much it, aside from Magnussen in the 4, who's a little bit of a ways back on the top side. Not really doing too great on the outside for the time being, but right now, David H. Baker and Adam Facciaponti working together. Same with that 870, who is now, at this point, 33 positions up from where he started.
Oh, Josh!
Yeah, it was really close there on the top side, just making it just a little bit of an aggressive move on the top side. It's starting to come to halfway, so we could be starting to see a little more moves that are aggressive. So for the time being, on the top side, it's going to be Emilio Largo, Dave Walsh, and at the 921 Pastorius, just top side starting to form. There's space on the inside, I should say, but unfortunately for the time being, that top side not really coming into play as of now. Everyone's just waiting to try and sort out that top side. A little bit of a mid-pack battle, essentially. Now, the 282 of Brendan Felipe is joining on the 6-car top side, so now it's going to be a matter of who can get up to the top side, or at least up to the, how fast can this top line and get up to the front of the inside lane. Judging for the lead is going to be very important here, but for the time being, it's going to be pretty close between this top 4, as right now John Paquin is going to have the 007 just on his outside.
Just on his outside and trying to make that push forward, and well, it's going to be another little case of trying to go 3 wide as this one tries to work out, but ultimately just about doesn't, as they are going to have to check up behind Largo. Now they've lost 5, and I think they're bored of being behind Largo, and they're going to push uber high side. Largo now's got to go to the middle, and they're almost 4 wide, trying to find a way through as Dave Walsh and Emilio Largo continue to go at it. Top 6 now remain in line at the moment, so they're finding themselves in really good position here just to work the way they want to. This is the backfiring now for TDR, but they do have 6 that could push.
Yeah, that was, they pretty much went nowhere in turns 1 and 2 there, as in fact Largo was actually ahead, since now the 842 and 921 were stuck up on the top side. But like you mentioned, now it's back to 6 cars on the top side, so long as TDR does not push the outside issue, as they might, unfortunately. Like you mentioned earlier, how long can they go without being selfish? Because if they do, that could be their downfall of getting out of the run for the lead.
Yeah, and look at this. Look how much it has cost them being up on that high side. I wonder if they're trying to get Riley Thompson in so they could use the machine push as they have been doing so often. It is a ragtag group of people at the front, but the big gainers, I think, out of all of this have been Grizzly, 2 inside the top 4. Dan Marcantonio started 36th, all the way up now into 3rd position, and has gained massively because of that top side failing to work together. Finally, Emilio Largo decides it's not worth my time. I'm going to drop down into the middle, and now TDR have got to gather themselves back up together and make that big effort to push forward as well. But new people being added into the train. Mike Golightly, who was involved in the first caution, now finds himself in the main pack, and Largo goes down into the infield. We're staying green for the moment, but a big wreck for Emilio Largo, who is effectively dumped out of this one.
Yeah, Largo is pretty much out of this at this point, as he got slightly bumped by the 48 and then turned around on the exit of the trial. Wolf tried to get to the inside, and then the bump, and then the hook is just the middle of that, the middle of the grill, unfortunately, that got him turned around. That got Largo turned around. So unfortunately, that is his race done for the time being. I believe he does have at least one faster pair. Caution is out.
Yeah, Brendan Philippe struggling, and he goes around in a 282 machine, and he was just trying to gather everything up. Got contact low with Travis Henderson, who started moving up the track slightly, and bang, just like that, did everything to save it. I almost thought he did, but finally at the end it goes around, the caution comes out, and nobody else gets involved with Philippe's accident, as it seems that just managing to be able to keep going, but without too much damage as well, it has to be said. But more happened on the exit, as Uldis Putekilis also got a bit of wall, it seems.
Yeah, he actually made contact with the 47. I think the 666 is moving up to avoid David White, who was also moving up the racetrack after avoiding. Misjudged the distance probably, or just didn't expect him to come up that short. So the avoidance there and the spacing was not exactly available at the time, unfortunately.
No, it certainly wasn't, and maybe a little bit of a naughty incident there, that secondary incident with Putekilis. Really, the caution comes out. It should be right on the binders, giving space to your opponents, but a caution coming in lap 92 here. We are on out of 200, and really comes at a time just before the half distance, which does sort of play into the strategy card a little bit, because I believe it is a good 2 or 3 fuel stops now before the end of this event. This is where drivers are starting to think, okay, if we do get some green flag running, where does this come in? Where does that come in? It's our 5th caution of the day. So if they're expecting a few more as drivers get more aggressive towards the end, 10 cautions, 12 cautions today, maybe it's just the case of running that strategy of, okay, just make sure that we're filling up, getting that one good stop in, and being good over the first 20 laps may be the key to winning this one today at Daytona.
Yeah, getting past the halfway point is the most important part of the Daytona 500, essentially, or in this case, the Majors 500, as well as strategy under caution and during green, as the team TDR has went back to pit road, so they're going to be under position at 30 at this point, but still up there is the 870, and, well, Dan has just done a wonderful job at staying up there in the top 3 after starting in pretty much dead last, because he started 36. He's all the way up to 3rd now, so he's just completely snuck his way up there within the first half of this race.
Yeah, he's done an absolutely fantastic job, has Dan Marcantonio, to get himself up there. Mike Golightly as well has gained an astonishing amount of positions at the moment. But again, another strong, not necessarily a strong little run, but that time only going about 7 laps on the stint there before a caution came out, which isn't amazing by standards. It isn't the case of what we have seen in the past, where they go 2 laps, 3 laps, cautions, precautions. Ultimately, I think from last year, it has been an improvement on this field than it has been from last, but it now becomes a case of, okay, we've still seen a fair number of cautions in the early stages. Now the question becomes, 7 laps, is that enough to decide to come down onto the lane? Most drivers saying, no, we've done 7 laps, the tyres are fine, the tyres are good, we can still push out another heat cycle into them. Unless you're Putekilis, who's a lap down, for example, who has to come down in. Dave Walsh, though, deciding to come in, and this is key because TDR, again, are going to try and use new tyres to advantage.
Yeah, but after 7 laps, it's not exactly worth the loss of track position. I can understand that, but at the same time, 7 laps is not really a reason enough to pit. The only reason that you should change tires is pretty much the same time you're changing fuel. So, unfortunately for them, they're going to be a little ways away back, as Thompson is back in pit road for some reason, getting the left sides changed. So, it's going to be falling back. Same with Walsh as well. So these guys pit twice, essentially.
It was
they wanted to stick together. Yeah, they're wanting to stick together, but not really sure if it's worth it.
Well, they're going to have to stick together, but Riley Thompson ever so slightly missed his pit box there as he was trying to go down in. Hayden Pistorius and Dave Walsh now will take to their charge in the field at the moment. 5 cautions, and we're a handful of laps away from the halfway stage here at Daytona International Speedway. Stay with us on the iRacing Esports Network. More coming to you after this.
Alfala is $10,500 richer. 2-time NASCAR is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR
2017 NASCAR Beginner Free Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
We are here. We are just a handful of laps away from halfway at Daytona. 5 cautions. Adam Fatcher-Ponti with pace at the front of the field, as now this race will look to go back green once again at Daytona International Speedway. We are off, and Fatcher-Ponti gets a good start, but it's 2 Grizzlies up top, as now Dan Marcantonio starts to try and push back up and force the line short. Not much Brian Barney can do as well in 5th position as he tries to push the train, which has stayed pretty resolute in the early goings. There's a nice little hole there as well between Marcantonio and Paquin, which a vehicle could drop in at this stage. But Gary, it has been caution filled, but not dramatic caution filled, just little incidents here and there, not quite the quote-unquote big one, as they remain too wide.
Yeah, everyone is very lucky that they have not managed to cause that as of yet. We had a near one there for that previous caution, but everyone was very scattered out in a good sense to avoid the wreck. So like you mentioned, just a few spins and things like that off turn number 4 there, where Marcantonio almost got into Baker there off of turn number 4. Things like that could be pretty devastating. They're trying to squeeze down. Baker's trying to squeeze down ever so slightly, but also not too much to the point. Marcantonio's trying to move up. There goes the 83. Dawson Brucken reaction to that. They'll be falling back now.
Yeah, they will, as they just get that little interruption by Brian Barney, who drops down low and makes his way forward and does a very good job, actually, of just breaking up the train. There's 6 in it, though, as now the likes of, I believe that's Jared Morgan, who has been at the back of the pack all day long, decides he wants to try and go up high side. And, of course, one of the veterans when it comes to this, up high, into the wall, down low, goes Josh Wolf, and he saves it as he keeps himself going. We stay green. What a save from the Torque Freak man. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf?
Oh my goodness, that was absolutely impressive. Unfortunately, well, it's better to really squeeze positions under green rather than turn back into the field. When he tried to save it there, well, when he did save it, I thought it was going to turn back into the field, but great car control there by Joshua Wolf, but unfortunately it's going to cost him a lot. He'll have to hope for a caution, but it's, in his case, probably the big one, but at the same time, for the drivers up here, they definitely don't want to see that.
And there is now nobody up on high side to work, so that has completely changed everything. The pandemonium caused by Josh Wolf means that we have single file racing effectively for the first time in this event. The question now becomes, how long is it going to take for TDR to push forward? The answer is they've lost the train here to Niskanen, to Grimes, and to Jerome Kaiser as well, so they're a long way away, and I'm not sure they're going to be playing much of a factor over this next course of action. They were the only people to come down and make that stop of note, but for the time being anyway, it remains a single file. Now this becomes a different point of contention. This becomes a case of, when does somebody want to try and make that decision to go high, and who's going to go with you?
Yeah, you have to have, again, that goes back to having your friends and teammates around you, or just drivers that you know want to work with you. Speaking of moving up to the top side, Trevor Vavrotsky in the 10 went to the top side, but decided to go back into the inside lane. So drivers that are going to the top side in this case are just looking to cool down their engines. The 777 of Kurt Crum is one of them. The number 4 of Matthias Magnussen in the 4, also cooling his engine. So in this case, if you're in the long single file lane and you just want to move to the top side, well, the 10 is going to be one of them, because he's trying to make a move on Swaby in the number 100, but at the time being, it's not really going to work out. So you're just going to have to wait for some drivers to work out and just run on the inside and find the greatest passing opportunity, because halfway this time by, it's kind of the best way, but you just have to know that you can control the top side or the lead.
He's got to control that top side, but he's at the moment the only one really going to it, along with the 14 machine behind, and that one not quite working out in favour. Gabriel Roos is not going to see too much pushing forward. Now, cooling that engine is going to be very, very important right now over this stint, as we are over halfway. The countdown now begins to 200. Cooling down that engine. A lot of drivers now have to be very wary about it, very cautious about it, because how easy is it, Gary, to blow up the engine when it's being pushed at 100%, 90% all the time, and there is no respite for that engine?
Probably about 3 or 4 laps at maximum if you don't let off. Probably about 5 laps if you're lucky enough. And that's just remembering from personal experience. So luckily I haven't really only exploited an engine, only got into the red zone. So that explains why the drivers on the inside lane are just, just laying back, not really riding up on the back bumper, occasionally peeking out to the outside ever so slightly, like the 8.7 of Marco Antonio, looking just ever so slightly to the outside and hanging on at least half throttle, about 3/4 throttle, just behind the driver. He moves up ever so slightly, catches up to the 84's back bumper, but then just lets off, just lets the 84 just ride in front of him, and not really pushing the issue with the engine.
Not yet at the moment, but really what we have been seeing from Marco Antonio is him just getting in the mirror of Adam Facciaponti. Not just to say that he could go out to the outside, but he's trying to make himself look large in those mirrors. And sometimes it's about being threatening here at Daytona, making your vehicle seem bigger than it is, because there is a pack of hungry sharks that's wanting to push forward. Now Matthew Bunn in the 11's trying to help out Vavrovsky in the 10, and ultimately not having too much help at all. And just looking at Vavrovsky actually, just for a moment, he does have that damage on the rear right quarter panel. That's going to be affecting him and the way that he's going to be able to push forward in this one, because he does have that slight difference. He's not getting all of the help that he needs.
And that could be why the drivers that are seeing the damage are thinking, I can't work with him because his arrow is pretty much gone at that rate. So it may not seem like it, but that arrow can easily be affected by just damage right there. And hello, as he moves right in front of the 280 of Salmon. So right now he's deciding to move back to the inside lane. A smart move to just hang on the inside lane and just ride it out as much as he can.
And a little bit on an unrelated point here at the moment, for those who were checking out some fantastic action that we've had here today, we've got the Neo Endurance Series going on right now with Will Vincent, Tobias Brockman and David Haynes. That one is definitely something to check out after this. But for those who are watching the iRacing Bathurst 12 hours as well here, Gary, it's finally going to happen. It's Catalunya confirmed.
Oh yeah, I saw that on social media a few days ago and thinking, they're actually scanning Catalunya? That's actually pretty interesting, especially since, some things just come out of absolutely nowhere for iRacing. So it's either a surprise, just a surprise release without any announcement whatsoever. So they're good at keeping things under wraps. But a few days ago, it's actually yesterday actually. It's been a long few days for me, but aside from that, though, it's pretty interesting to see that their announcement of the new track. I'm actually looking forward to see how it's going to look in iRacing.
So am I can't wait. But now look at this train that has just started to make the push. It's a machine. It's TBR, who have finally found themselves on the rear of the pack, and now they can start manufacturing a way up forward. They've already dealt with the back 2 or 3, and now they're looking to try and get to the middle to get up to Vavrovsky and co. And now may be the time to just jump up high side, find yourself a way through. Lonnie Fitch is a bit of lap traffic, and this is going to be a choke point. Oh, the 18 there, I believe. No, sorry, just in front of that. Yes, the 18 of Sean Fleming, who's been involved in the second caution today, almost causing the 6th as he went up high. Got to go careful about that, and that really killed momentum.
And the momentum is pretty much gone after that, so somehow, someway, everyone is still moving forward, and impressively enough, Thompson, oh my goodness, that was way too close to the quarter panel and the back bumper, moving up to the top side. Pastorius around again on the apron, hard shot to the inside. Pastorius has more bad luck, and he's pretty much done for the day, as he's involved in another wreck. No caution, of course. But,
and the replay up on screen as well. Hayden Pistorius, it was starting to threaten. They were getting incredibly close as the 11 came up, but it was the 18 that came up into ever so slightly. That was Sean Fleming there, just getting a little bit high, and Pistorius tags the wall. Lucky he didn't tag Fleming as well. If he caught Fleming, that would definitely have been a caution, but we keep going. Pistorius now out of the motor race here at Daytona, and now there's more trying to join to the train up top. Pavrovsky, Norton, and also Matthew Bunn to try and make a high line push that's come from a mile back. And I think if you're 5th, 6th in train now, if you want to be Grizzly, now's the time to go high. And look at that. Maybe a half look at a defence there from David H. Baker as they now look to charge up for a top 5.
That's actually Dawson Brock that moved to the top side, but you are definitely not, well, you're definitely correct either way for trying to make a defensive move. Brock was thinking, well, might as well move to the top side, see what happens, and then he just immediately decided against it. So very smart decision is now on that same lap. Thompson was really close to the core panel of the 842 a couple laps ago when Pastorius had spun, so he's going to have to be very mindful about that distance between his front bumper and the back bumper of Walsh, let alone the quarter panel, because, well, one wrong move and pretty much everyone is around.
And one wrong move could be with traffic up top, because they're now trying to get past the 48 of Joshua Wolf, who will be ceremoniously on the outside and does well, gets a bit of wall, but does just about enough to keep himself going on the straight and narrow. Now Kurt Crum decides he wants to jump up topside. This will allow Mike Golightly to go to the inside. No, that's covered. It's now going to be a breakaway at the front. It's a front 9, and crucially there are 3 that are coming in from Grizzly, 2 from TDR. But now look at TDR starting to push up, trying to get past the V-Apex vehicle of Brian Barney now looking at a podium they are thinking of at the moment. But then Marc Antonio and Thatcher Ponte. Well, Thatcher Ponte, we've seen, has not been afraid to go high to block the move. The question becomes, would he do so again, knowing Marc Antonio is right underneath him?
I don't see why not, but then again, there's only about 3 cars down the top side, so at the moment, well, closest in proximity, so that top side has dissipated very quickly, and right now they're falling back off of the 870 of Marc Antonio ever so slightly, and there goes that momentum that they just had. Now it's Fleming is indecisive, it seems. Now he decides to go to the top side, as he's going to follow the TDR team, or at least 2 that are left in this race, unfortunately. But right now, that means Brian Barney is now officially in the podium, but for how long is the question, because that top side is sort of coming in, but at the same time, it's also going away at the same time. Look at how close Trevor Pavrovsky was to Walsh over there in the tri-oval.
Yeah, they have to be careful, and someone else who needed to be careful there was Sean Fleming, who has found himself now inside of the top 10 through all of this, and he's been pushing his way back through the field as well after his little bit of an oopsie-daisy with Pistorius there earlier on, just a couple of laps ago. But now here on lap 111, it's probably been a very strong run here in this, and they've managed to get themselves going a good 15 laps at this stage, looking for 20, so this will be about halfway in a green flag run. And once you get to about halfway, you then start thinking about that chase on back down to a pit stop cycle. We've yet to see a green flag pit stop as of yet here in this event, with 5 cautions over 95 laps. But for the moment, Thatcher Ponte holding station at the front of the field, and you could see Marc Antonio thinking about going high, trying to use up the power that was there, or the power that has been. And there's a come on guys coming in from Brian Barney. He's not happy about this. He wants to get moving. He wants to get going there in the battle for the 3rd place.
Yeah, he's been deadly close to the 842 of Walsh these past few laps. He almost had himself turned with the when he put the right rear core panel almost to the front bumper of the 842. So they're trying to stall that momentum by pinching instead of getting pinched downward. They're trying to move the TDR team up the racetrack ever so slightly in an attempt to really dissipate that speed as much as possible. Marc Antonio slightly moving up as well, but you know, it's going to be very close here, because instead of getting squeezed down, you're moving up the racetrack into the person that's right beside you. So, yeah, you're not wrong that Brian wants to get moving, but you just have to be very careful at your movements here, because one wrong move again, and, well, pretty much gone for the race, but doing a great job at the moment hanging on to this position.
They are, and I've got to remember as well that TDI have 7 laps on their tyres as Brian Barney almost rubs doors there with that 842 machine, of Dave Walsh, and that one could have very easily ended up in disaster if they're not careful. But look at what this is doing to the train here. It goes all the way back to Matthew Bunn. They had a breakaway, and then Kurt Crum has worked to get back into it as they're almost 3 wide here as they go in through number 1, and they managed to get that all nicely sorted out between I believe Sean Fleming and Kurt Crum. But this is the sort of thing that we're starting to see here. Drivers are experimenting on the really high line in case they have to make that absolute push to the top. The thing you need here towards the end of this event, though, is someone to push with.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have, so you just choose a random driver at best and hope that everything works out for the time being. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but there are times where you just have to hope that it works out and everything goes fine. So Brian Barney has pretty much given up for the time being on trying to stall out those top 2 drivers of Walsh and Thompson. He's just going to decide to let them race it out up there in the top side, but I can only get up to at least Mark Antonio, who gets really close to the quarter panel off of turn number 2. So as Walsh gets close to the quarter panel off of 2. So down the back straightaway, it's just going to be interesting to see how long the 842 and 58 can stay up there on that top side.
We've seen how those two have been the big pushers of the top line throughout the majority of this event. They have been the ones trying to push the envelope out, making sure that they are the ones who are going to be making a difference. And well, why can't you? This is a place where names are made, and your name will be remembered like Eric Mickey. What's trouble? Caution! And it comes in the middle of the pack. And looking at that one, there's Bradley Salmon getting involved in it. And there's the big one that we were expecting, a huge instant in the tri-oval. Salmon getting caught out by, I believe, Lyndon Swaby, the Canadian, just getting down a little bit too low. Also catching the 47 of Marcus Niskanen, who did well in the early stages. Just like that, bang! Caution 6 comes out, lap 116.
And Niskanen was unfortunately involved once again, but over on his roof for a few moments was a 280 there of Bradley Salmon, and well, the 100 of Swaby got the worst of that as well. Same with that 47 machine, so a lot of issues going on. There's another spin, actually. David White was around in turn 3.
Oh, and it's all just starting to kick off a little bit. David White, yes, having his own issue, and oh my goodness me, David White and David E. Baker, I believe it was, who came together. So that was CQR Club and CQR Club. Yes, it was teammates coming together. Oh, they'll have an interesting discussion about that afterwards. But David White, I don't think will be too happy about that with David E. Baker. So championship leader or co-championship leader getting involved.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. You just have to really pay attention, but not sure about that, to be honest. But other than that, yeah, like you mentioned, they're definitely going to have a little bit of discussion about that afterwards over the radios, if not after the race.
And what's looking very telling at the front of the field, actually, is Walsh is running the apron along with Riley Thompson. So they are trying to minimize track as much as they can. I reckon they're trying to go on fuel here to save it as much as possible at this stage. Pit stop time, though, comes in, and everyone's deciding it's time to make that push as Mark Antonio decides he wants to go straight on along, side by side. His pit box is incredibly early, remember. Let's not forget that one at this stage. So everyone now looking for their boxes, looking for a good stop to come in, but look out for the orange of Mark Antonio, which will be making that push very, very early for the line.
And John Paquin, first pit stall, makes it through, well, makes it into his pit stop, very smooth. Great stop by him. He hasn't really been up to the front of the field ever since he was involved in a caution a few laps, many laps ago actually, but you know, get off a pit road in a very sensible amount of time, so nothing too major of a difference, but I think Paquin's actually going to be within the top 5.
Yeah, and we've seen here some great moves. Trevor Vorovsky has been the big mover. He's up 7 positions over the course of his stop, and there has been a change at the front because moving past Adam Thatcher-Ponte is Dan Mark Antonio. Started this one 36th out of 36. He started dead last. He leads here at Daytona. That's what NASCAR's about.
begin a free series championship to Ryan Luza. Federer is a four-time champion of the NASCAR Begin Freeze iRacing Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
From last position to first, Dan Marcantonio will have pace of the field with 80 laps to go at Daytona International Speedway. It has been one where we've seen incidents throughout the middle to back of the pack, which has caused a lot of trouble, but ultimately this race has become a very important one as drivers left and right have been searching for position. Pace car comes in, early getaway from Dan Marcantonio. We're green once again at Daytona, 80 laps remaining.
And that means Marcantonio, he's actually going to move out to the top side. He's going to bring the 48 of Fittipaldi with him. Fittipaldi, as on the top side, is going to be Trevor Vavrovsky somehow managing to stay on the top side within the top 5 in general. Well, I say that, he's going to get freight trained, unfortunately, but still managing to stay within the top 10 after just a little bit of right rear damage. But somehow, some way, he's doing a great job at hanging up there.
Been doing a good job of getting himself forward, and the pit stops have been doing that. There is a gap available for him, though, behind the TDR vehicles, and it is two of his own teammates of Grizzly Motorsport, and if they get a train of three working, and just like that, they all form a single file, they can start making their own push the same way TDR have been doing on the high side of the track, and that's been the key to this race. TDR have been the ones who have been making the most cumulative positions gained over the course of this one, but it has been the case of when do you make that move, and just like that, they decided once more with Dave Walsh, I'm thinking about the high side. Come with me, Riley. I need some help.
Yeah, it could be a little bit, well, it's not exactly early on, since there's no such thing now, since well, like you mentioned, 8 laps ago, now 79 this time around. They're going to be making their way up to the top side, but they do have, like you mentioned, 3 cars of Grizzly Motorsport directly behind them, essentially, so it could be interesting to see if Grizzly Motorsport decide to push it 3 wide, or if they wait on the inside and trying to shuffle out TDR.
But Grizzly have got to be careful here, because they're starting to drop back with Wawrowski's overall pace. They're 0.4 of a second off of the pack now, and that's a little bit of cause for concern if they are not too careful. But finally they make an effort here to get around Brian Barney, does the TDR boys, as one vehicle comes off of the lane. That is one of the Can-Am cars that makes its way by, but you can see everybody in this train all the way back to position 16 and Matthias Magnussen for Kinetic Racing. They have a chance here today of picking up that victory. You still have everyone technically picking up that chance, but in that front train, anyone of the top 16 could still walk away with this one with a victory if they play their cards right.
And just have to play the cards as correctly as possible. Don't stress out as much as you want. Just cool down, live in that moment, and just make sure just go lap by lap, and next thing you know, you'll be at the end and hopefully near the front, as Team Grizzly has sort of started to shuffle out TDR, and just like that, those 3 cars have shuffled out the top 2, those top 2 drivers on the outside.
And
So
go ahead.
Now you go ahead.
I've got it. Okay, well, this is where we're going to see something interesting here, because if I were Grizzly here, I would try and hang out to dry as much as possible TDR, and then make my own effort, because I've got an extra vehicle that can go and make that push, and then you'd get the help from TDR to go up. And let's not forget, you got Emilio Largo, who has been a big key player in all of this, and maybe Kurt Crum deciding he wants to go high as well, and he finally, for the first time today, decides to for the Bombshell Inc. car.
And you are not wrong for Grizzly to try and use that top side. Emilio Largo decides to move to the inside this time, so he's not really wanting to help out TDR probably as of right now. Now they see, more team drivers and more drivers on the inside especially, so he's probably taking a break from the top side, and no doubt about it, I probably would as well. But Kurt Crum, like you mentioned, first time to the outside, he's probably just going to hang back and not really do anything, just trying it out for the time being until the laps wind a little bit more down. Then he may be starting to get just a little bit more aggressive, just like all these other drivers.
And we've seen how when TDR have made that push, it's Thatcher Ponte's 84 that has come out to cover and take as much as possible away from the train. So maybe Thatcher Ponte's going to do something very similar if they get up top, but maybe a little bit of a block there from Brian Barney. He doesn't want that train to push it any further forward, and this is where those at the front have now got to be starting to think, okay, we've seen how good Dave Walsh has been in things like Ignite. We've seen how he's had help from Riley Thompson. If he continues to get that help, maybe we have to start disrupting him so he doesn't become a factor at the end of this event, and that's what we're seeing here. Some teams starting to build up in the middle of this front pack, and they've got to try at the front to disrupt as much as possible to keep it as much of an open race and the odds stacked in their favour.
And this could turn into a 4-on-2 situation, essentially. Brian Barney has been disrupting, like you mentioned, he's been disrupting TDR pretty much every single chance he got. So if Grizzly can work out with that 55, then that means that could be a pretty much game over for TDR. And as far as the 777 and the 18, well, they're joining this battle, but essentially they're probably not going to be working with TDR for very long.
Well, Sean Fleming and Kurt Crum on the rear of this pack on the outside, but look at this. There was John Paquin giving a little bit of help there on the outside. Gives half a draft over to Walsh, who can now make that push, and that clears Brian Barney. So this now becomes a case of maybe other drivers with different things. Traffic in front as well. Marcus Niskanen is going to be one to maybe a little bit worry about, but I think some drivers want the train up there. It gives them an option to go out there and to attack Dan Marcantonio at the front of the field. field, who I have to say has done amazingly to go from last to first over the course of this race.
I still have no idea how he managed to do that, but he did. So props to him on that. But as you can see right now, side by side, Adam Facciaponti did not move to the top side of Dave Walsh as of yet. So pretty sure that 84 has had enough of the top side and is deciding, well, Brett wants to say that he moves to the top side. He's giving it half that draft. So he's doing the same thing that Paquin did, but Facciaponti nope, he will not. He'll actually move to the top side, challenge for the lead. Now he can't move back down to the inside for now.
Facciaponti has been playing this race very well as a lone ranger, and now Dan Marcantonio's got to be a little bit worried about this because there's 5 against 3 now up on the high side, which could mean that Facciaponti could come down and cover if he wanted to. But a couple of cautions ago, we saw how Facciaponti was able to cover off a 3-car TDR train, and I think that's what he's looking at right now. They've got the overlap. He could drop down if he wants to, but look at what he's covering. Dave Walsh right in the middle of the road. He tries to cover it, which allows Dan Marcantonio to come back.
Yeah, he's trying to control both of those lines, and he's doing a great job. In fact, to the point where Marcantonio was almost dead even off of turn number 4. He did have the draft ever so slightly. We've seen Facciaponti control both lines earlier on. Moves to the very top side, trying to lure TDR, and he could pretty much just essentially dive down straight to the inside, but he's not going to do that as of now. He's going to try and lead them out, maybe try and separate both of them off.
He's trying to get that separation, but at the moment, Riley Thompson remains too wide with Dan Marcantonio. 5 at the top. Now the train starts to build at the bottom, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so, all the way back to Matthias Magnussen and Matthew Bunn, who's trying to go in, up high. Marcantonio, and into the wall slightly there goes, I believe, Kurt Crum, who will now drop backwards. We stay green, but my goodness, that could have ended in absolute calamity at that point through 3.
And for the lead, somehow, someway, TDR is now 1-2 as Facciaponti is going to get left out to, not exactly left out to dry. He's got the help of Sean Fleming. Marcantonio could also join in on this, but he's not really going to do anything as of now, as the 84 and the 18 are going to drop back very quickly. Could be seeing the 870 and 25 work together here in a few laps, but my goodness, a great save by Kurt Crum there to not just move straight down into the rest of the field. He kept it off the wall, but he also kept it high at the same time.
It was Kurt Crum who caused the final caution 1 year ago, which gave Eric Mickey the win at Daytona. But for finally the first time in about 131 laps, it is TDR who have control at the front of the field. Walsh and Thompson now will have that stranglehold and can basically cover off moves on that high side. It's going to have to take a monumental effort to get around them. May take 6, 7 vehicles up on the high side and completely leaving that front lane bereft of anything if they want to beat the machine.
Going to take a last-second move as well by some of these drivers that are directly behind. But now my question is, we've seen TDR move up to the top side. They've been willing to go 3 wide. It hasn't really helped them out. Are any other drivers willing to go 3 wide just to see if they can somehow split TDR off or just get around and get control of that lead?
Well, that's what we're going to have to be seeing. We've seen patience from Grizzly, who have had 3 vehicles in the front for a very long time. They've not done much. Oh, up into the wall goes Facciaponti. He holds it together. 1, 2, 3. Smashes into the barrier. Slows it right down. More trouble, though, as Matthew Bunn gets a bit of a shunt, and he keeps himself going as just in front. Everything starts worrying, but somehow we are green still.
And Jared Morgan made contact with another driver.
Oh, no, we're around, and it's caution. And that was one of the Grizzly cars. That's David H. Baker who goes around in the melee. Just like that, it was contact coming with Sean Fleming, who went low, and bang, caution 7 comes out lap 133.
That wreck, the wreck started over in pretty much the tri-oval, and then it finally happened on the back straightaway. My goodness, looks like contact with the 18 of Fleming there on the back straightaway. Fleming tried to come down, but unfortunately he came down way too quick and into the 33.
And that's the second time today Sean Fleming's been involved in a racing incident out there on track, and there's a little bit of scorn being shown by John King, the man who is in charge of race controls proceedings for this one. John King not happy with the way that incident panned out, and I'm not surprised because there were 3 separate incidents in that one which contributed to that massive crash. And you have to look at that one there. Yes, there was what happened with Facciaponti. What happened with Facciaponti had that knock-on effect into Matthew Bunn, but ultimately, it has to be said that Sean Fleming's incident was completely unrelated.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. It was just a long chain react. And pretty much all three incidents were almost unrelated. The two major ones being Fleming, and then the chain reaction of Morgan and another driver who, unfortunately, I believe it was actually Matthew Bond that you mentioned. But other than that, the one on the back straightaway between Fleming and the Grizzly driver, you are not wrong. That one is 100% unrelated to what happened on the tri-oval. But right now, all drivers are on pit road.
They are, and they're looking to try and hit their lane. Marc Antonio, let's not forget, will be one of the first in, and he had a very good stop to get himself out to the front, so he should be lightning quick when it comes to his reactions, being able to get an early box to get out and going as quickly as possible. Both of the TDR cars hit the lane nicely. A few stay out as typically they do. Josh Wolf might go lightly, and Emilio Largo, though, they make the call to stay out on track. Two who were up there towards the front, deciding it is worth their time to stay out. Walsh does well, as does Thompson. Marc Antonio comes out third in terms of those sorts of stops. But really, what is very, very telling is a lot of people will take a lot of time on the lane. Thatcher Ponte, for example. David H. Baker takes a fair while on the lane. Bradley Salmon still on the lane. Jared Morgan. Hayden Pastorius has been there a long while. But two decide that they want to stay out here on the iRacing Esports Network. Largo and Go Lightly will now try and make their way around the track as we have ourselves 65 laps to go here at the circuit of Daytona.
Is $10,500 richer. Two-time NASCAR. This is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR.
2017 NASCAR Beginner-Free Series Championship to Ryan Loser. Federer is a four-time champion of the NASCAR Beginner-Free iRacing Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
63 laps to go when they cross the line. It's Emilio Largo. It's 007 at the front of the field, and it's the 77 alongside of Mike Golightly, who was involved in the opening incident of the day, which caused the first caution. We've had 7 in 137, averaging about 15 laps when it comes to a green flag stint, but Largo for the first time today holds control over the front of the field. First Mustang safety car comes down in. We're getting underway. It's green flags here at Daytona. Slow start though comes in from Mike Golightly, and it leaves absolutely nowhere to go for Riley Thompson, as now Dan Marcantonio, who led after that last stint, now finds himself on the inside looking at a podium.
That's got to be the plan, and there goes Thompson up top, and oh goodness gracious, Golightly somehow, someway almost clips the back bumper of the 870, but manages to hang on to it. But he's in between those TDR drivers, so that is a very smart move right there, even if it wasn't planned. But he's going to be forcing them to stay and have as much space between these two as possible.
And what's telling is that Largo and Golightly did not take tyres at the last stint. They did not come down and make that stop. Everyone else is a bit quicker, and now it's just the case of 3 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Golightly now goes low, and TDR can work together now, which is maybe not what was part of the plan, but Largo now gains that advantage and gets himself to the front of the field. We've seen how at the front of the field it has worked for drivers here today, like Sean Fleming had a good stint earlier on, as now traffic comes in of Jared Morgan there on the high side to get around, and they will get around that without too much worries at all. But the group just opens up slightly to Matthew Bunn, who was involved. I think it was either him or David E. Baker that was involved in that incident earlier on for the last caution, but there is just a little bit of a gap back to John Paquin, and Paquin at the moment here just sitting there in about 7th position at the moment, or 8th position, just happy to stay there at the moment and watch this train battle out.
Yeah, it's better to just sit back, relax. Well, not exactly relax, but just sit back and just watch everything happen in front of you while still staying within distance of that front pack. But in the moment, they're doing a great job at managing that. There's a little bit of a gap now, but look at this. About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 cars roughly on the inside lane, trying to keep both of those 2 TDR team drivers on the top side and very far back from the lead as possible.
Yeah, and we're just seeing how everyone's just trying to find a bit of a gap and trying to force the issue forward and trying to find just that little bit of a run. But now TDR are not getting any help at all on that high line. There is nowhere for them to go as they are trying to make that push. As now they're probably going to get a little bit of a lane here with Matthew Bunn just a little bit further back. But really, this has been a race of who can get to the front and who can push themselves. Here's a good stat for you. Inside of the top 5, one driver has started this one from inside the top 10. 3 of the drivers started outside of the top 25 for this one. Marcantonio, Golightly and Fleming. This has been a movers and shakers day here at Daytona. Proof that anyone can win when it comes to restrictor plates.
And it's absolutely amazing to see all of these drivers within pretty much outside of just any position on the racetrack somehow find their way into the top 5, top 10 even as well. So now Matthew Bunn has brought Christian Rose and the 076 of Kaiser with them, so that means it's just a little bit more of a ways back for Thompson and Walsh to fall back. So they're really getting shuffled out of the top 10 and very quickly here. Gabriel Ruse and Kurt Crum and company as well, on with them in that second pack from 12th on back.
Yes, and that second pack's now got to work to get onto it. Gabriel Roos in charge of it. Crum, Magnussen, Henderson, Favroski, Grems, and Shane Norton as well. Mikey Grems has been a lap down over the course of this event, and he has done well to get himself back into position in the leading pack, and that just shows you how good things have worked. Same for Dakota DiCienzo as well. He's in 19th position at the moment, -5 for the day, but do not count anything away. He's been behind since about turn 2 of this event.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, but he's still managing to stick with it. And right now, it looks like, no, actually, they have not been shuffled out. But Ruse and a company have caught up on the inside lane. So now it's quite literally just 2 drivers. Christian Rose, however, in the 26, leaving a little bit of a gap to the 11. But right now, it's still pretty much, it looks like their momentum is stalled out for TDR. That's stalled out just about 5th place on the inside.
Yes, and it's stalled out around Sean Fleming, and it's not really helping Dave Walsh here, and that high side only mentality has seemingly backfired over the course of this run. They could get a good little help if they get someone like Christian Rose to jump into the pack. Dan Marcantonio may decide that he wants to try and make a move past Emilio Largo, who has been pretty much there or thereabouts. He's had a spin so far today, but he's managed to get himself back to the front of the field. 56 laps to go when they next cross the line, and they all have to come in at least once more because of fuel.
My question is when to pit. Probably about, well, it just depends on how long you know you can go, but I'd say probably about 40 laps to go is the best time to pit. But of course, that's just me, and I haven't really raced this in pretty much about a year, so it is going to be interesting to see what strategy decisions that some of these drivers make, and to see, well, like you mentioned, if the high side mentality goes away, because the next gap that TDR has on the outside, well, or on the inside rather, is only back in 21st behind David H. Baker rather.
Well, the two David Bakers are making a baker's dozen at the back of the field, it seems, because they are there 20th and 21st as the train just slightly slows up a little bit. Maybe fuel saving at this stage coming into play. Now, this is where things also get tactical. The question of when do you bump comes into play, because let's not forget, bump drafting your opponent forward effectively takes away their fuel save.
Taking away the fuel is kind of a good idea. Making the drivers on the top side waste just a little bit more fuel could help in your own strategy, or at least help eliminate a little bit of competition, which goes back to the every man for himself mentality, where sometimes you just need to you want to let somebody in and be courteous, but at the same time, do you really want to give the driver that advantage for fuel?
Do you want to give that advantage, or do you not? That's what we're starting to see here. Your top five, Largo, Marcantonio, Golightly, Brock, and Walsh and Fleming battling it out together. There's more traffic now up on the high side. This is Marcus Niskanen looking to get out of the way of everything, as they're going to go 3 wide, and they get around 3 wide without any problems at all. Niskanen running that high line absolutely perfectly, and what's really good for those in the traffic is that through that oval there are little white lines that you'd see on the highway, which are so useful for saying this is the line you need to be on when traffic becomes a factor.
Yeah, definitely. When traffic becomes a factor, that is the one that you have to at least stay above. So it's a very nice little addition. It's subtle. You think it's just there. It's just so it's marked from the very top side. In a sense, it's like the slow lane on the highway, which ironically enough is usually the right-hand lane over here in my local area. So that's usually the case. So very nice subtle addition. But right now, Sean Fleming trying to do the same thing that the 55 was doing earlier, just move up ever so slightly as the 56 of Claude Belval gets past. He's still running, unfortunately not in the position they wants to, but that 18 of Fleming is doing the same thing the 55 is doing, just moving ever so slightly upwards. At the same time, he's trying to stay on the inside lane and keep that draft as much as possible.
Yes, and almost trying to disrupt that flow as well. And I think what's very telling about this is also look at in-sim time. It's just hit 7 o'clock. The sun beginning to set here at Daytona International Speedway, and this is where things get very interesting. That track is going to be cooling. It's going to be getting quicker. Tire pressures are going to start coming down a little bit, and now it's the case of, well, how are you responding to everything? What can you do to get yourself into position to make this work? A caution would be very interesting to see how the tire pressures get changed and who's adapting well to it.
Yeah, the best person that you want to work with is someone that you know can easily and quickly adapt to the track changes as much as possible. So even if that means changing lines ever so slightly, moving from the outside to the inside or inside to the outside, as Sean Fleming had a little bit of a moment there in turn 1, barely got the apron, he managed to hang on to it. Yeah, having someone to adapt to the changes in the track is usually the best person to have around you.
Second pack at the moment is around P20 onwards right now. It's got Bradley Salmon, Brian Barney, Josh Wolf, and Adam Fatcher-Ponti. All 4 of them have been right near the pointy end. The front 3 have all at some stage been inside of the top 3 so far today. They all find themselves on the outside looking in, hoping probably for a caution. They are 7 seconds off of David E. Baker, and they have no chance of getting to the front. Talk about the front. Well, it seems that they're starting to push at the front here, because Walsh is now up into the 3rd position now, challenging Marcantonio and Largo.
And the question is, who's going to move to the top side? And there's a question answered just as I ask it. Mark Antonio moves up to the top side, trying to disrupt that as much as possible. Possibly going to move low at this last moment, but at the same time, he's probably going to try and hope to split up, along with working with Emilio Largo there. How far he's trying to take up to the top side. Mark Antonio has not moved to the inside. He's going to try and control both lanes as much as possible. Maybe going to hope that the 007 helps out, but at the same time, try and split those two drivers up. So it's complicated, but hopefully it works, as they're going to go, they're actually going to swap right now, maybe. Now just cooling the engine there is Thompson.
Yeah, and that was telling, because Mark Antonio went down to the bottom, and they're not going to stop in the 842 and make their way by a couple of bits of lap traffic. David White was one of them, and there is Dan Mark Antonio back to the front of the field, getting past the old tyres there on Emilio Largo's machine. Largo and Go Lightly, though, they will have to come in earlier than these other drivers around them. They were the only two not to come in on that last time by, that last caution to make a stop. So this is where the telling factor comes in. It should leave a hole at some stage for the others like Dawson Brock and Sean Fleming and John Paquin to run into. The question would then become, how quickly would they close up and fill that void left by Largo and Go Lightly?
Yeah, it's gonna be very close to see how quickly and how pretty much how soon they can fill that gap that would be left, because it would pretty much give the outside a little bit of an opening, is just edging a bit ahead, just by about half a car length on the back straightaway. Now full car length is Walsh, and trying to disrupt that as the 870 Mark Antonio still doing his best as possible. Now it could be controlled by Walsh here, but he's going to be trying to bring Thompson with him. But at the same time, it's not really going to work out. Oh, there goes pit road. Oh, no.
Dummy from Mike Go Lightly was trying to see if anyone would go with him. They wouldn't that time, so he decides against going down onto the lane, and this pack is starting to fragment slightly, as now still Walsh is trying to bring himself into a position where he can come down the track and get exactly what he needs. He can't at the moment. Mark Antonio's done brilliantly to keep himself right up there at the front here. Under 50 laps to go, and come 40 laps to go, that's about the time where you can come in, make a stop and make it to the end. I'm not sure if you come in right now, or if you've got enough actually to come in right now. If you're Mike Go Lightly and Emilio Largo, it's going to be a case of, can they make it another about 7-8 laps?
Well, if they stay in the draft and just hope for the best and control their throttle as much as possible, as in not full throttle, but about half or 3/4, as mentioned earlier, well, in that case, they should be fine on fuel just for the most part. They can stretch it out ever so slightly, but possibly not full at 7-8 laps.
Yeah, and they're going to need to have to stay out as long as possible. A caution right now is the biggest help for Largo and Go Lightly out of anybody else, but this is the issue. No caution's going to come out if everyone's going to be running single file all the way back through the field. The only people on the high side right now are those challenging for the race lead, and that's telling close. They go out of NASCAR 4, and just like that, it's Dan Mark Antonio who's still holding off the Irishman Dave Walsh, as they now have more traffic on that outside to deal with and navigate by.
7/1000ths of a second was the gap at the line there, so that was for the lead, or for the race win rather. That would have been quite interesting, and still trying to squeeze down. So start to see a pattern here. Dave Walsh is trying to squeeze down Mark Antonio. Mark Antonio is trying to force Walsh up the racetrack at the same time. Emilio Largo can't really do much because he's definitely trying to save fuel along with Go Lightly, and everyone else is just single file laying back watching this happen in front of them.
And I think they've got everything that they need out of this. We've got no reason to push. We don't want to help that TDR team make a way forward in the field. And I think that's been the reality for, I think, everybody looking at this. They don't want to help that TDR team, which has been so good on that high side. Finally, almost got that overlap. But again, that inside line helping Mark Antonio get back into that position and really put the pressure on Dave Walsh to try and clear when he's just not got enough able to do. This train, mind you, is stacked all the way back to David E. Baker in 21st, starting to lose a bit of time with Dakota DiCienzo at the back of this one, but no, everyone just comfortable at the moment, waiting for that last stop, and after that last stop, that's when they're going to decide they want to start making moves as we hit lap 157.
And it's just going to be a huge decision on when everyone decides to make their pit stop and what lap, essentially, and who they go with, if anyone does go with them. For Go Lightly, of course, we saw him dive down to the inside, so it was a bit unsafe, but he is on his 40th lap of his stint right now, so he's going to be starting to head to pit road in a few laps, possibly.
But he wants to try and extend this one to 42 if he possibly can. There's no guarantees that he can, but he has had a nice little stint of running around at about 100 Ks because of the caution. That's what's been telling. He's been able to save fuel in that time, as has Emilio Largo in this one. The Club UK&I based drivers. Still they stay out as they make their way to lap 158. Just 43 laps remaining here at Daytona as they have been racing for 2 hours and 25 minutes of in-race time. 2 hours and 25 minutes of flat out is absolutely amazingly difficult to do, but all of these drivers still in with a shot of victory here today.
And it sure takes a long time to try and get used to how long this race lasts. Usually about 2 hours, 3 hours maximum. From the one that I've raced last year, it's about 3 hours. So that was fun. Didn't seem like 3 hours for sure, but it was quite interesting to see how long the race could go on. And right now, it's just almost about 2.5 hours of in-race time. So somehow, some way, these drivers are going to be making their way through to the end of this race. But it just depends on what happens around the end of it, because TDR is still trying to dominate that outside lane, but still Walsh and Largo and Mark Antonio are still controlling that inside lane.
The moment that Largo and Marc Antonio dive in, it's the moment when Walsh and Thompson are going to strike, because they know that all that draft is going to go away from Dan Marc Antonio. That's when they will have the 2-to-1 advantage on the high side and will be able to push around. It's the fact that Largo has stayed there that has been the big difference maker. As now, is there a little look onto pit road? No, there's not. They've hit lap 160, which is almost, I think, ding ding. They've hit the number that they've needed to over this one. Walsh now finally leads another lap after starting this one up in 10th position over in qualifying that was done pre-qualification, mind you. And now you start thinking about who from the middle of the pack might decide to want to go high right now. Someone like Shane Norton, for example. Someone even like Mikey Graves, I think, could be fantastic to move up to the high side after issues he's had going a lap down today.
He's definitely going to need a lot of a little bit better luck today, and he's so far gotten it as he's back on the lead lap, 17th as of now. But for the time being, it's just all behind a string of cars, as looks like Go Lightly was inching towards pit road there off turn 4, but no one really made the move as of yet.
Hasn't made the move, and now you have to start thinking here. Marc Antonio will want Largo to bump at this stage, and that's probably the only thing that's stopping Dave Walsh from not getting through, is not getting enough of a bump to make that push forward. Other drivers who have done brilliantly in this one, talk about Gabriel Roos, 34th up to 12th position. He's had a great run. Jerome Kaiser as well, Team Mad. He's managed to find himself up 14 positions. That is right on the precipice of a top 10 if he can keep this sort of run going, and I think that's what Jerome Kaiser is hoping to find here, as he's got Rose and Bunn, two drivers he knows very well, in front, as now they both dive onto the lane. Go Lightly and Largo have done enough at lap 161, 40 to go.
And it's perfect timing as well. So just over 40 laps on Go Lightly's stint. Now the question is, how smooth can they get into their pit box?
How smoothly indeed, and just like that, Walsh and Thompson take advantage of Go Lightly and Largo, and they make it 1 and 2 at the front. Dawson Brock has now got to find an extra cadence, because this one is going to start falling away from them here out on track. So in is Go Lightly, in also is a certain Emilio Largo, and they're both going to need good stops to get to the end. They will not need any more fuel, but tyres will be the next one. Little wiggle coming out of pit road for Emilio Largo. Where will they come out? Will they get swallowed up by Walsh and Co and Thompson if they do start falling a lap down? They probably should here at this stage, but right now it's TDR who have control of the field right at the crunch time here with under 40 remaining.
And Go Lightly and Largo will be getting lapped, but in a sense it could help them out, because they do have a little bit of space and a slight advantage for in the event that any of these drivers in the top, pretty much top group essentially, will be heading to pit road, and that is pretty likely at this rate.
It is pretty likely, and Right now, they're starting to fragment a little bit. Gabriel Roos finds himself on a little bit of an island. It's fully single-file racing, and someone's got to now make the decision here. Go up high, but they're all thinking about, we've got one pit stop to go. There's no point in us going high, and right now, Riley Thompson can make his vehicle as wide as possible. There was a bump into turn 1 on teammates, and that could have ended in disaster. They've got to make their vehicles as wide as possible. You effectively have to arc out 3 lanes of traffic to get around Thompson, and that's the big worry right now, is how does Thompson defend? Effectively, someone's got to play guinea pig going high to push someone low to force Thompson out wide.
Yeah, someone's going to have to try and just help out and somehow split these two drivers up. At the same time, they've always managed to find each other through pit stops, but you can see Mark Antonio keeps searching to that inside. We saw this earlier on in the race, pretty much around the beginning of this race as well. As drivers trying to protect the top side. I believe it was actually even with the 25. He was back over in 6th place, so he's not too far from this, seeing his own strategy being used as well. But as for trying to get around, well, like you mentioned, someone's going to have to go high and make a quick fake out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they're going to have to play that fake out. It's a train of 11 at the front. Gabriel Roos has dropped 0.6 of a second, and now that second pack is starting to think, well, this is starting to fall away from us here. We're not getting much help at the front, and those at the front now have got to start thinking, okay, when do we push high side? The answer is they can't. The pit stop window is fully open right now. They can come in at any time they like, so this now becomes a case of who can go long and who can save the fuel the best and get in and out of pit road the best as well, because this may just come down to here at Daytona, in arguably one of the longest stints we've seen over the course of the event. How can you go on the lane and make a perfect green flag stop? They haven't had to do it so far today, but I think now is probably going to be the time they're going to see it.
And everyone's got to quickly make the move and, well, just be smooth and...
More trouble! Leader Dave Walsh gets turned by his teammate. Caution comes out here at Daytona right before the end. 36 to go at the line, and the push from the teammate, the quarter panel, it has backfired massively for TDR.
And that's what happens when we try to be too aggressive. Looking at the replay now, and well, already half a car out. That is danger enough as it is. Clearly unintentional, but that's what happens when we try to be aggressive and push the driver in front of you, as well as protecting the outside lane. But that's the cost of it.
But I don't think that was a case of defending there from Walsh. That was a case of being a little bit too cheeky there, was Riley Thompson. He was trying to put that bump, but he didn't bump square. And you always talk about, if you're going to bump a driver, you're going to have to bump them square on the back bumper. He didn't. He got the quarter panel, and that was enough to send Walsh around. That there has to fall on Riley Thompson, and I think the teammates there will have a little bit of a talking to after, when it comes to the debrief.
Oh, yeah, more than likely. It's, for Riley Thompson, trying to defend that position just did not work out too well. And, well, he tried to defend, and again, it's just the middle portion of that front bumper that unfortunately causes all of that. So, unfortunate, heavily unfortunate luck for both of these drivers. And hopefully, Dave Walsh, of course, definitely has a faster pair available to him, but at what cost?
But here comes the pit stop cycle, and arguably the most important one yet of the day. Riley Thompson is in there first. Dan Marc Antonio early on the box again, as per usual. But this becomes arguably the most important one. Who can find themselves in position? Anybody staying out? Well, David White is a 1 lap down, so that'll be the reason. And let's not forget who stayed out in all of this. Go Lightly and Largo came in early. They got a caution, and they are going to gain a lap back. But unfortunately for them, they're going to have to come back to the back of the field here in this one. One lucky dog at the moment for Emiliano Largo, and for the moment at least, Mike Go Lightly needs a bit of help, and crucially Thompson gets out ahead of where he needs to, but Marc Antonio's gone for a 2-tire call.
Yeah, Marc Antonio, a very smart decision in a sense, because not all 4 tires at Super Speedway are really worn down too much to the point where you'd have to change all 4 every single pit stop. At least 4 tires, probably about just halfway in general, but nonetheless, though, smart strategy decision by that number 870.
We will see when time becomes of the essence at this stage, as right now nobody has got themselves the opportunity to stay out any further than that. So it is Dan Marcantonio who leads with just 32 laps to go when they cross the line at Daytona. We'll be back on the iRacing Esports Network for the final 30 odd laps.
Is $10,500 richer. Two-time NASCAR. This is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR
2017 NASCAR Beginner Free Series Championship to Ryan Luza. Fella is a four-time champion of the NASCAR Beginner Free iRacing Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
.30 to go at the line. Dan Marcantonio has control of the field. The leader, Dave Walsh, spun by teammate Riley Thompson, who is in second position. It's Dawson Brock third, John Paquin, the pole sitter, in fourth, and Matthew Bunn, who has been very quiet, is inside the top 5 for the first time today. 30 to go. They can all make it to the end from here. It's now a case of who can survive the gauntlet here at Daytona. iRacing Ford Mustang safety car dives down onto pit road. Go lightly, goes early with 30 to go here at Daytona.
Great start by the inside lane, Dawson Brock. Well, part of the inside lane, at least Dawson Brock for sure. As he gets around Thompson now, I'm wondering if Thompson is actually, yeah, it looks like he's going to reluctantly head down to the inside and almost work with Grizzly teammate Dawson Brock, or Grizzly team member Dawson Brock, as Oh, John Paquin is just riding behind right now. He's been sneaking his way back up into the top 3 throughout this, and we are quickly single file for the most part, unless you're unfortunately Kurt Crum, who's stuck up on the outside with no help.
Yeah, no help at all. Same can be said there, right at the back for Shane Norton, as he's running into his own little issues right now. Mikey Grem's, out there on the outside. But now that outside line starts to pick up a bit of traction, and it suddenly falls away as Fleming decides to dive down in. It is DiCienzo out on the high line with Dave Walsh. Walsh desperately trying to get back up to the front of the field. He had control of this race. It fell away, and maybe it might be time for Riley Thompson to go back and help his teammate. He may not, though, after what's just happened. And will they be on the same page of this one? It's Dan Marcantonio, who started dead last here today in this event, who has control of the field. Dawson Brock has yet to get to the front at any stage in this one. He's just been playing the patience game. That patience has got him up from 15th over to 2nd position. This one still in the hands of at least 15 drivers to see who can win.
Yeah, it's going to be in the hands that we haven't really seen the essentially the huge one. We've seen a few decently sized wrecks, about 5 cars, I believe, maximum, have just barely been reached for wrecks here at Daytona so far. So everyone really being patient, taking to the inside lane. And as far as Riley wanting to work with his teammate Walsh, well, I'm pretty sure they'll have to be on the same page afterwards, because they can't really do anything if they're not. But that does go back to, again, every man for himself. So is it really time for that mindset to play into effect, and how will it affect the teammates?
How will it affect those teammates, and when will they get to that position? It's worth reminding, ladies and gentlemen, a caution with 5 laps to go ends the event anywhere between 5 and 2 laps left. If there is an incident that happens on the final lap, we go to the checkered flag. That's the way that it is playing out, and at the moment it is Dan Marcantonio still with control, but there are still drivers who haven't yet shown their hand today. Drivers like Jerome Kaiser and Christian Roach have been quiet. Christian Roach getting a massive kick out of this event, because he came into this one tied at the top of the championship with David E. Baker. He may come out of this with a massive championship lead here in European majors.
And if he does do that, that means, he's, A, got bragging rights, and secondly, David E. Baker, as, he's all the way over in
18th.
18, thank you. I was looking for him. I say David H. Baker, and ironically, they're right next to each other for the most part, just over on the timing, just 1 position separated. So that could really help out Christian Rose, as he's up here in 7th. So a whole 11 positions may not seem like much, but at the moment, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens.
Well, this is going to be interesting. It depends who's working together. The question is, CQR and Team Mad often have a close-ish relationship, so maybe Rose and Kaiser maybe deciding they want to work together with Matthew Budd. A little bit of a gap at the moment to the front 4, and John Paquin, who is just happy to sit where they are. This is now the game of chess. It's who shows their hand. It's almost like a chicken game where you're trying to get over to the cliff and who's going to jump out of the car quickest. That's the sort of thing we're seeing, unless there's a push from the likes of, say, DiCienzo, who at the moment is trying desperately to get himself up through the field, and he finds himself on the edges of the top 10 around Vavrovsky. Mikey Grems is next in the push.
Yeah, a few drivers, like you mentioned, haven't shown their hand, but something that's actually quite interesting to me is that we have Dan Marcantonio up in 1st after starting dead last. John Paquin is back up there in the top 5 after starting in 1st, so it's going to be, again, it's just interesting to see what happens. We're going to see what they do and how desperate they are to get back up into 1st if you're John Paquin, or retain that lead if you're Marcantonio.
And this is the issue, is that this pack is starting to slightly splinter at the moment, which is killing the outside line. Kurt Crum left a good 3/10 gap and closed that back in again. Now the gap is with that damaged Trevor Vorosky car, and this is where the issue comes in. Vorosky on that outside is not helping at all. Little washout there from Walsh as well will drop him back a couple of positions, but now they're starting to gather momentum on that high side with a group of 4. On it is Travis Henderson. Not Travis Henderson, you got Thatcher Ponte on the back and David H. Baker. They are trying to now make their push through the field. Question becomes, does Vorosky move up high? Who moves up high to try and gain that advantage the same way Thatcher Ponte and Marcantonio have been able to do over the course of this event to get to the front of the field?
And it just depends on who's really willing to move up to the top side, sacrifice that inside lane that everyone loves to the point of where they don't want to move to the top side. Sometimes they may not even go up there whatsoever unless they're pretty much avoiding a wreck. But right now, well, at 07, 842, and the 33, they're all trying to work together in a sense. And, well, Vavrovsky has finally made the decision to move up to the top side. But remember, he's got a little bit of aero damage on the back.
Yes, but he will be getting pushes from DiVincenzo and also a certain Dave Walsh. So they are going to be getting a little bit of help here up on that top side. Matthias Magnussen thinks about joining the crew. And look at this. Kurt Krum gets a push as he joins up top. They're starting to maneuver here. Trouble DiVincenzo round. Caution will come out. And now, with just 20 left on the clock, it's the big one here at Daytona.
842 of Walsh involved again. Sean Fleming involved. Same with Adam Fittipaldi at 84 again. More bad luck as the replay is up.
And they were starting to dice. They were all moving to the top for their own reasons. That was the worry that was coming in. They were moving around, and it was a case that it was DiCienzo who went low, and he just got a tag on Mikey Grems. And, sorry, not Mikey Grems. He got the tag on Sean Fleming, who ever so slightly was moving up. And just like that, the big incident happened, and about the middle of the pack has been ceremoniously dumped from the Daytona 500.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking essentially as well, especially so late into this run, almost near the end of the race, made it that far, and well, next thing you know, you're not exactly in the contendership anymore, so it's just very, very heartbreaking for most of these drivers. But that means essentially that Thompson is the only driver now that's in Team TDR. While Walsh is still on the racetrack, he does have a very decent amount of damage to really just hold him in the back of that field.
And remember, he's had to use that fast repair on the instant that he had on the previous caution. That's caution number 8 of the day that we have seen. And now this is where it gets very interesting. Who dares dive down, get 2 tyres, and get back out and try and gain that advantage over what will be a reduced pack? With 20 laps to go right now, and that will come down to about 17, 16 when the green flag next drops. Who wants that advantage, and who gambles on there not being another caution?
It just depends, especially on not having another caution. Well, it is Daytona, it is possible, but looks like Mark Antonio and the majority of the field is going to stay out. The only drivers in the back that may have gotten a little bit of damage are heading to pit road. Same with David H. Baker, which I don't believe he actually made any contact, unless he did get hit from behind, which he does have a little bit of rear-end damage. So it's majority of everyone's staying out. I wouldn't pit if it's 20 to go, and I've pitted pretty much in line enough for strategy to stay on point, so it's not really worth pitting a second time.
Those with a fast repair will happily take it and 4 fresh tyres and try and use that to their advantage up on the high side. Everyone else has practically decided it's time to stay out on track and try and make this work. And let's not forget here that Mark Antonio got the bold call to get out ahead of Riley Thompson. How will his tyres be faring come the end? Because he's got to keep putting heat cycles into them. Will his tyres let go between now and the end of this event?
Well, you better hope that they don't, but there could be a chance that just pretty much anyone's tires could just start to quickly fall off at the end. But remember, like you mentioned essentially 30 minutes ago at this point, quite exactly, that the track is cooling down.
The track is cooling down indeed, but every driver right now in the train has a chance. John Paquin, for example, we haven't talked too much about him over the last 100 laps or so. Started off at the front, got cycled on backwards after an incident, which he did very well to keep out of, really, which was a 2-car incident with Fleming. He's managed to pull his way back up to 4th place. Arguably, he could be said he's the quickest driver in this field, but what he has had is a reluctance to go to that high side. When do you break that reluctance here at Daytona and push high?
To break that reluctance is a lot, but staying on the inside, of course, while it is preferred, you'd really want to control both of those lines. We've only seen Mark Antonio and the 48 manage to control both of those lines. Sort of John Paquin earlier on at the beginning of this race, but he's gotten shuffled out all the way to the back at this point in the race. But at the moment, he is in line to win as well. So there's just many drivers.
You have to also remember those who have came in a little bit earlier might go lightly, and Emilio Largo find themselves inside of the top 15 at the moment as well. That's great work from them, making their pushes through the field. Look at Mikey Grems, though. He's been a lap down here today, and he's inside the top 10 with under 20 laps to go. Vavrovsky with the damage has still kept himself in a very good position. But this is the question now on the 83's machine, Dawson Brock. Brock has been very quiet, has not made that push up to the front of the field. Arguably now more than ever, he has to. With 2 to go before we go green once again. And now Dawson Brock's got to think, well, I'm perfectly poised for this one. I'm in second.
Yeah, he's going to be restarting on the outside. The time is pretty much A-okay for him to really make a move up to the top side, or at least to the lead, I should say, as he'll be restarting in second. So it's, I don't know, for him, I'm pretty sure as much as he wants to wait, he does realize that the laps are quickly winding down. So at this point, I'd say it's go time for Dawson Brock.
I think it is go time indeed, and he will be looking to make sure that it is all in his favour. As I do correct myself, that it's the 9th caution that we've had today at this track. Henderson is the first driver of those who have pitted. He's in 17th position right now, and he's arguably got the most work to do out of everyone. He could be the driver to keep an eye out on in these final stages if he makes that charge up through the field, as they will now start looking to line up in double file for what could potentially be the last time here today at Daytona. Don't count your chickens just yet, and they all understand that they have to go and push to a level which they know they are capable of. Right now, Dan Marcantonio from last has that control, but control only gets you so far at Daytona. You've got to have skill to win these races.
I definitely need as much skill as possible to somehow find your way up top, or at least within the top 10. And, well, if you're the number 10 of Trevor Vavrovsky, you're pretty lucky that you somehow managed to get the arrow just right and managed to keep your way in that top 10.
Yeah, and there are drivers who have fallen by the wayside today. Michael Lane, Randall Welts II, Brendan Philippe, Hayden Pastorius, Lonnie Finch still out there and going, but multiple laps down, as could be said for Niskanen, Morgan, Bradley Salmon, I think, has just had day done. Fleming, day done on the lane. White in troubles. DiCenzo, day done on the lane, as well as Dave Walsh as well. So a few drivers, I think 3 or 4, getting retired after the big one here at Daytona, and it did threaten. But as they head into NASCAR 3 and 4, the pace once again will be behind the 870 machine of Dan Marcantonio, who could go from last to first in a fantastic drive here at Daytona. Dawson Brock for Grizzly in second. They love the ovals. Riley Thompson third for TDR. John Paquin there fourth for P1 Sim Racing. As we got CQR Club's Matthew Bunn in fifth, who has yet to show his hand. Jerome Kaiser for Mad in sixth. 6 different teams inside of the top 6. It's all to play for here with 16 laps to go at Daytona. Green flag flies, and we are underway once again.
A great start by a majority of these drivers, especially Mark Antonio, who immediately moves up to the top side. That's going to leave Riley Thompson heading the inside lane and right back down to the inside because of the 870. So now Dawson Brock getting help from Paquin, your pole sitter, who started this race. So now, like you mentioned, 6 different teams, 6 different drivers. Is definitely every man for himself.
Great start there by Kurt Crum to get up inside the top 6. He won at Indy. He was so good here a year ago, but caused the final caution at Daytona. Bombshell have had the mastery of European splits when it's come to these sorts of races. They've got to do something incredibly similar if they want to come out and pick off victory, but it's Mark Antonio who holds control. 16 to go now at the stripe, and now it becomes a case of who works the high line right now. Largo decides he wants to go up high, but he's not going to get any help at all. He's too far back to gain the advantage of the falling and failing Dawson Brock and also John Paquin, who have nowhere to go. They're being freight trained.
Yeah, everyone quickly went single file. Thompson is trying to do similar way he did before, but this time he's laying a little bit farther back off the back bumper, trying to control that top side in a sense, as well as staying on the inside lane, either controlling control the top side, or just cooling down the engine. But for the time being, he's got to be careful not to turn around the 870.
It's a train of 13 at the front. Largo is the big breaking point. Go Lightly's half a second back. Wolf and Henderson need to work hard to get back up to this one, and they're running out of time if they are going to make this happen. Look at who's in the back of this pack who may need to go up high side to make this push. If you want to start going, maybe we tend to go if you're at the back. You start forcing a high line to work. You've got nothing to lose at that stage. There's the likes of Magnussen and Grems who've had nothing to do with the front. David E. Baker at the front as well. Remember, he's got everything to worry about in this one today here, Gary, because you've got to remember, there's Christian Rose just in front, tied with him in the championship.
That's going to be really close as Vavrowski got a little moment there on the apron, just a slightly loose turnaround.
Bang! Caution! Round goes Paquin as well. And right now, there throws another line. Largo gets a shunt of it. And there's more as Brock gets a massive hit off of Lyndon Swaby, the Canadian, as we get a caution with 14 remaining here at Daytona. They were getting a little bit wiggly there off of the exit. And again, it's a not square hit on the rear of Dawson Brock. The bump failed for Paquin, and Dawson Brock goes from hero to zero in the blink of an eye.
Oh man, it just happened so quickly, as well as you mentioned Largo got a piece of it. Hard shot into the 25. My goodness, as well as I believe some other driver, someone else I believe just barely avoided that. Definitely Mikey Grems and the number 4 machine of Matthias Magnussen, they barely managed to avoid it.
They just about got around it, and that pulls them a bit further forward. And I think Vavrowski will be happy at the fact that he'll be pulled further forward as well through all of this, because he was effectively nowhere in some respects after that one, because of the fact that he was dropping off the pack. He needs another good start, but this is another case for Dan Marcantonio here of just checking off the laps, and it's an important checking of the laps, because when they next go green, there will be 10 and under to go, and that's when the elbows really do get out.
Yeah, it's going to be very wild for these final 10, not even 10, well, possibly 10 laps, but either way, at the start-finish line, it's going to be really close, and we're going to find out when the lights go out to see if we actually do get an even 10 or just under, because like you mentioned, 5 laps to go, and well, between 5 and 2 laps to go. When the caution comes out, the race is over essentially, so it's definitely the most appropriate time to let those elbows hang out.
It ended under caution a year ago. Will it be the same? Dan Marcantonio would probably want to, in his heart of hearts, win this one on the track. But if he has to take it by caution, then by hook or by crook, you take a victory here at Daytona. Marcantonio, Thompson, Bunn, Crum, Kaiser, your top 5 as things look. And right now, it's a case of start hedging your bets, because with more incidents, drivers are just position themselves slightly better. Vavrowski up into 7th, Mikey Grems into 8th. David E. Baker now starts closing down the gap as he finds himself only 5 positions back now from Christian Rose, as he's now sits in 10th position. Mike Golightly, who pitted earlier than everyone else, he's now in 11th position, and he's gaining massively through all of this.
And Golightly is really lucky with managing to avoid that incident. He's got the 48 Joshua Wolf. He's sort of made his way back up for the most part. He's got a little bit of damage, it seems, on the right front of his car, but other than that, he's pretty much fine for the most part, and just managing to at least hang on to the rest of this race. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how many drivers make what aggressive moves in these final few laps.
And these become incredibly, incredibly important. Let's not forget, Gabriel Roos was also tied for the championship. He's back down in 16th position, and the bigger loser out of all of this. No David Van Broek here for this one. So Christian Rose, in fact, is just a little bit further back in the championship. He finished 2nd a little while ago. Josh Wolf also in that mix, as is the likes of Marcus Niskanen too. But For the time being, this becomes the important crush time. Split 2 is finished, by the way. 114 laps they went before their first caution of the day came out. They had some great green flag running in split number 2. But split 1, we are still 10 laps away from anything happening. It will be 10 to go when they go back green again. We are 2 laps away from that. But now this is where pressure comes in. Now this is where you need nerves of steel. And if you haven't been up the front before, surely your heart is pounding more than ever here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially since, getting related to sort of personal experience over in NIS, I believe the first race that I've done, I restarted about 3rd, finished pretty much 3rd as well. So it was very nerve-wracking to think, oh my goodness, how am I up here after all this time? And you just have to remember your spatial awareness, listen to your spotter, check your mirrors a lot more than often, and give room, even if it's going to sacrifice all of your positions. Give room on the inside. Just let yourself get freight trained if you have to, unfortunately, because at that point it's better to get freight trained than to really make an aggressive move and block early on and end up wrecking yourself or somebody else.
Very, very true. They line up then in double file. And now there are a lot of drivers who can stamp their name with authority. Dan Marcantonio last to first at the moment. Riley Thompson's been running the high line all day long. He's been looking to make that push. Is the outsider disadvantaged at this point? That's the question many will be answering. Matt Bunn has quietly moved up to 3rd all day long. Kurt Crum has been in this position many a time before with Bombshell. And Jerome Kaiser there on the inside trying to make something happen. The outside needs to work then. It will be 10 to go when they come to the line. And with 10 to go, I have to ask you now here, Gary, pick a winner.
Oh man, it's going to be Dan Marcantonio. It just has to be, because that last to first is absolutely impressive. Unfortunately, pole sitter John Paquin is out, but Marcantonio has pretty much been in the top 5 ever since the second half of this race.
5 of the top 6 drivers have been outside of the top 10 when it came to qualifying. Paul Smith, our director, has said he wants Kurt Crum to see a victory in this one. My money is on the 11 of Matt Bunn to find himself an opportunity to get to the end. But we're not here to play favourites. We're here to see 10 laps worth of racing here on the iRacing Esports Network, presented by RaceSpot TV. The likes of Anwern Designs, our official graphics partners here at RaceSpot TV. ATV and Engineer, the official graphics engines. Nick Thyssen for live timing and scoring. You've also got the likes of Simon Grossman for animations and Esteban Ballo's Track Cams 22. Make sure you check those out as well. Big gap being left then to the iRacing Ford Mustang safety car, which will be coming down with the lights off on top of it this time by. 3 hours have been driven already. Now it's a 10-lap shootout. Here it's the Daytona, not necessarily 500, but more rather a Daytona 25. Here goes Dan Marcantonio. We're green here at Daytona. 10 laps to go.
10 laps to go, and a great jump by Marcantonio. Bunn is going to follow him straight through as Thompson does not get a great start on the outside. But look at that, Kaiser just right behind that number 11. Rose dives down to the inside, and Kurt Crum is going to be following Thompson on the top side.
And Riley Thompson starting to struggle. He drops back to 3rd and nearly 4th. There's no one helping up top. There's no push. They're all trying towards the rear. The likes of, say, Mikey Grems goes high. David E. Baker's up high. Travis Henderson trying something up high, but they're running out of time. If they want to get this to happen, if they're not careful, the lights will come on here as sunset comes into view here at Daytona. Beautiful part of the new iRacing day to night transition that we have been seeing. And Dan Marcantonio still in control here at the front of the field. They need some help up top. Who's going to go? Magnussen maybe. Vavrovsky maybe. No, neither of them do. Remember the 24 of Henderson as well. He's got fresher tyres than the rest of the field.
Henderson is going to be trying to make his way up there as quickly as possible. At the moment, he doesn't exactly have an opening, but right now, we're going to have to be seeing that 870 control both of those lines as much as possible. But at the same time, he wants to stay to that inside because he knows that there's only 2 cars, now 3, as Vavrovsky dives up to the top side behind Crum. Not a lot of drivers on the top side, so he's definitely going to be sticking to that inside as much as possible as he moves up slightly off turn 4.
Now they're starting to pack up together, and now they're starting to think about where do they need to be. Top two trying to break away, so without pushing, finding a line. Right down to the apron goes Christian Rose, about 4 back in the line. And now they're starting to wonder about this. Who's going to make that big move? And they're getting closer and closer to the 5-lap cutoff point, where if anything happens from there between 5 and 2 laps to go, a caution ends proceedings like it did a year ago here in the European Majors. Dan Marcantonio, though, still at the front, and now the outside line is faltering. They are 3, 4, 5 back they are going now, and suddenly TDR and Bombshell are losing sight of victory here at Daytona.
Magnussen was all over the back bumper of Rose down the back straightaway. Rose looked to the top side. Didn't have anything to do with it. There goes Magnussen forcing that 58 up top. Everyone going to try and make a move. There goes Crum to the outside. Yeah, Kaiser going with them. A lot of drivers going with them. Rose is one of them. This is going to shuffle the 870 down to at least 3rd place in line. 2nd place on the inside.
For the first time today, Matthew Budd gets himself to the front, and now he's got to control 2 lanes. Antonio goes right down, and there's trouble, there's contact, and bang into the wall, and they go 6s and 7s. Caution comes out with 6 laps to go, and my goodness me, it's a 2-lap sprint, and truly the big one happens, and now it's all to play for.
Riley Thompson involved, many drivers. David H. Baker involved, Bunn was involved, many drivers. That is definitely the big one.
Wow! Just like that, all came off of the exit of turn 2. That's where it all happened. Bunn got himself clear. He tried to cover 2 lanes. Marcantonio got brave. He got down to the inside, and then when Bunn left room for him as he got a nose down, Kaiser, nowhere to go. Bang! Into the wall. Back down went Kaiser, and then everyone just started to panic. The big one happened, and now we've got ourselves a 1 or 2 lap sprint to finish things off at Daytona. That's the 11th the 12th caution of the day, and this one is probably going to finish under floodlights.
This is going to be interesting. Yeah, the lights should be coming on in a few moments, possibly throughout this caution, but so many drivers were taken out, and somehow throughout all of that, the 870 of Marcantonio managed to make his way back up into 1st, but Magnussen is also back into what is now 2nd place for him.
And this is where it's all changed up. Your top 5 is completely different. It's Marcantonio, Magnussen, Henderson, Vavroski, and Crum. Your top 5 as things stand. So this has really changed up. Henderson, remember, he's got the fresher rubber compared to everyone else. Marcantonio still on 2 tyres. You've got Matthias Magnussen, who has started today in 4th position, has only dropped backwards, and it's only now that he has pulled himself right back up through the field. Don't expect anybody to come down on the lane with 2 laps to go. That would take a very brave person to decide to make that call. But my goodness me, this race has suddenly changed, and also for the championship, because David E. Baker has now seen his rival drop miles down the order.
And David E. Baker can finally just relax for a few moments. He's going to be starting, I believe, almost directly alongside David H. Baker. So it's going to be quite interesting just to see what happens. But also, Marcantonio had a great start for a few laps. Those same amount of laps are probably going to be the exact same that we're going to get on this restart, except it's going to be a lot more chaotic and a lot more moves.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly chaotic indeed, and a lot of people will look at that being really chaotic very quickly. We're going to drag in Dave Walsh from TBR into the conversation. Dave, you had the lead with about 40 laps left to go, and then your teammates ultimately stabbed you in the back. No comment. Exactly what we were thinking. Dave Walsh then not in a position then to have any sort of conversation at the moment. We'll see if we can talk to him after the event. But Gary, you have to say right now, this race is still not over, still not complete, still can go any one of a number of ways. This start becomes the most important right now, because anything with 2 laps to go ends it. On the white flag lap, any contact goes effectively.
Yeah, it's pretty much anything goes on the last lap. So it's, my goodness, it's going to be, again, just not exactly insane, but it's just going to be, probably insane, considering that it is Daytona, of course. The lights are still on. So, yeah, like you mentioned, at least 2 laps to go, because they'll go out next time around expecting.
They will be expecting those lights to go off next time by. Crucially, it's Grizzly 3, Grizzly 4. They could effectively choke off the rest of the field with them having a stranglehold on row 2 of this restart. You've got the likes of Mikey Grems in 6th, Josh Wolf with a lot of damage there to the rear in 7th place. David E. Baker's 8th, and then you've got David H. Baker and Dawson Brock 9th and 10th. Anything I think about 6th back at the moment is probably going to be where you look at for the race victory, unless something dramatic happens on the last lap in the front of the field. Any days of thunder drives, I think we're probably going to need to see. This is going to be probably a very exciting finish to what has been a very exciting Daytona.
Yeah, it's going to be a very exciting finish, and there's hopefully it won't end under yellow, but you did mention the lights coming on. Well, they're not on just yet, but possibly just at the end of this race. The lights should be coming on, but it's going to be, again, just a matter of, like you mentioned, days of thunder driving. Don't forget, don't count Travis Henderson. He's going to be starting 3rd. That's usually a prime position for restarts here at Daytona.
It certainly is, and with fresh rubber against Dan Marcantonio, Henderson may just have made himself the favourite from this position. Don't count out Marcantonio. He pushed the envelope. He got himself all the way down to the bottom and pushed himself right to the limit when it came to this one. So question becomes, can Travis Henderson get himself through? Can Marcantonio hold on? What can Matthias Magnussen do when it comes to this one, as the lights should come off of the pace car this time by, and on cue they do. We are going green with a 2-lap sprint to the end.
Yeah, 2 laps to go. It's going to be just a wild 2 laps for sure. Oh my goodness. Well, we saw again Marcantonio. He had a very, very good space, a great start, but now the question is anyone really willing to work with him? Because now it is truly going to be every man for himself. And oh my goodness, Trevor Vavrosky is in 4th as well.
And he's done well with the damage on his rear. Spotlights on here at Daytona. Floodlights on here at Daytona. Now it's time to write your name in lights here. Marcantonio, Magnussen, Henderson, Vavrosky, Crum, Grems, Wolf, Baker, and Brock. This is where your name gets written in history. This is a 2-lap sprint. If a caution comes out in the first lap, that's it. Game over. If a caution can't come out in the second lap, because we'll be going all the way to the end. 870 at the front of the field for the last 60 laps or so. Has worked incredibly hard to find himself in. Sorry, the last 40 laps he has found himself there, and he is now looking to try and put himself right on cue with a victory at Daytona International Speedway. We haven't seen everything just yet, but now this is where you start laying your hands on the table. This is where you showcase exactly what you're made of, as they made through 3 and 4. iRacing Mustang for the safety car dives down onto pit road for the final time today. Dan Marcantonio goes green flag to left here at Daytona. Great start coming in from Magnussen.
A wonderful start, just down to the inside he goes. Now Marcantonio is going to have to try and protect at least. Oh no!
They're into the infield, it stays green. Baker, the championship leader, they're somehow still going. They're manufacturing a way through left and right, and somehow we're still going. At the front, it's Marcantonio, Magnussen, and Vavrosky, and now it's completely splintered. Henderson back, caution comes out. Dan Marcantonio goes last to first to win the 500.
They wrecked off of turn number 2 of the 77, 11, and 14 were 3 wide.
Oh, and it was carnage back. Matt Bunn involved in that one, and they were all trying to find a way through. That was Go Lightly going down to the inside. He caught the apron going down on that inside. He was desperately trying to find a way through it, but he just ran out of everything, and then he runs into Bunn. I believe he ran into Gabriel Roos as well, who was tied at the top of the championship. It's all ended in a bit of calamity, but it won't matter for Dan Marcantonio, who will take his final lap now as a lap of glory under the floodlights, because he held on through the clutch moments for the second straight year here in the Majors European Split. We finished this race under caution, and for Dan Marcantonio, My goodness here, Gary. He has worked hard to get that victory today.
Oh yeah, from last to first is absolutely impressive. How many drivers on iRacing are pretty much in general, and pretty much just iRacing for a 500-mile race here at Daytona. Like, how many can they say that they started last and finished first, under caution or not? On the bright side, I was right with the pick, because he came from last to first, kept it in about first as well, pretty much about the top 5 in general throughout the second half of the race, and he has showed that he does have what it takes.
Well, they say you can win from anywhere at Daytona International Speedway, especially in the 500. Dan Marcantonio proves that to be true today. He comes to take the checkered flag, and he wins here at Daytona ahead of Matthias Magnussen in second for Kinetic, and Grizzly Motorsports take third and fourth for Vroski ahead of Travis Henderson, and actually they take fifth as well with Dawson Brock as well. What a race we have seen here at Daytona. A shame it didn't finish green, but official classified results are going to be up on your screen right now as Daytona comes to an end. It's Dan Marcantonio, last to first. He'll take the victory over it. Doesn't matter because they finished under caution. Matthias Magnussen gets second position with Trevor Vroski in third. Travis Henderson and Dawson Brock make it a great day for Grizzly as they gain massive momentum when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. Jerome Kaiser gets sixth place with Mikey Grems coming from a lap down to seventh. Same for Josh Wolf in eighth. Claude Belval, who was involved very early on in incidents for Can-Am, he finishes in ninth with David H. Baker for Grizzly rounding out the top 10. It'll be Christian Rose who makes big inroads in the championship with 11th place finish. Adam Facciaponti was up there at the front at the beginning. He gets 12th place. 13th comes in for Riley Thompson, who was up there at the front with not long left to go. Aldis Putekilis came from 2 laps down to get to 14th, with Gabriel Roos in 15th. Mike Golightly caused the final caution, 16th position for him after he pitted early. Shane Norton 17th, Brian Barney 18th, Kurt Crum caught up in the penultimate incident in 19th, and Matthew Bunn caught up in the final one. He had the lead before an incident with a caution. Also got the likes of David E. Baker, 21st for him in the end, the last driver on the leading lap, and 15 retirements today. The likes of David White, Jared Morgan, the likes of Lyndon Swaby, Sean Fleming today. Also Dakota DiCienzo, Dave Walsh, who got ceremoniously dumped from the race lead. Hayden Pastorius, Lonnie Fitch, the likes of Randall Welch II, and Michael Lane not getting themselves over to the line. We're going to step aside here, though, on the iRacing Esports Network, the post-race show, coming to you after this.
Is $10,500 richer. Two-time NASCAR. This is your 2013 NASCAR iRacing. It's going to be Humpy winning the race, and it's going to be Conti taking away his first NASCAR
2017 NASCAR Beginner-Free Series Championship to Ryan Luza. Federer is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Beginner-Free iRacing Series.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Well, it had a bit of everything, didn't it? Some good long runs. It had itself quite a few cautions and all the drama that was filled in at the end. It finishes under caution, and Dan Marcantonio runs from last to first to win at Daytona. What a fantastic race that we have seen here this afternoon into this evening. The floodlights on here at this fantastic Florida track. Standing by with me, though, here in the post-race show is Treva Vavrovsky, who finished home in third position overall. Treva, that final 2 laps, it ultimately ended up being half a lap, but do you feel like you had an opportunity if it did stay green to the end?
Had it stayed green to the end, I may have had a chance. My teammate Dawson Brock was coming up from I don't know how many spots back at the start of that restart, and I think we could have potentially given them a run for their money. My car was still a bit wounded from all of the other contact that I had throughout the race, but yeah, I think we could have given them a run.
Well, you certainly had a lot of work left to do come the end of this event, because you found yourself with about 40 laps to go, pitting in, getting yourself a few repairs done. You had the freshest tyres of about the rest of the field. So in terms of how you were going to manage those final few laps, actually how the field sort of played into your hands a little bit, do you feel like you had yourself maybe that chance of looking at trying to just gain as many positions as possible, just ticking them off one at a time when those laps were ticking down in the final 40?
Yeah, I tried for a Hail Mary with about 10 or 15 laps left once we got one of the restarts, and tried moving to the high side to see if I could link up with some other guys to go, and I went straight backwards. So from then on, it was just get in line and hope Lady Luck is on your side at that point. And I think with a third place finish, I could safely say that despite all the bad luck, it ended up being a very lucky position for me to finish in.
And while you get a lucky position, and now you're moving on right up in the championship as well, which will be something that you will be probably incredibly happy about when you are looking at this one. The schedule coming up as well becomes a very important one as too. So in terms of where you're looking at for the next round of the championship, just exactly what are you looking for in terms of consistency in the early part of the season?
Well, for us coming into the season for Grizzly, it's been about trying to do well in the constructors ever since the start of last season. We haven't really been focused on the drivers too much, just because we have a really diverse group of drivers. We tend to lean oval, at least over here in the European region. We tend to do well in those races, but it's really about the team. So getting the 3rd, 4th, and 5th is really, the best. It's a great result for us, and going forward, hopefully being able to build off of that after not the greatest Daytona 2.4.
Well, before we let you go, any shout-outs or sponsors you'd like to get off your chest?
Just the team, all the guys working on the car, David Baker coming through with an awesome setup kind of out of nowhere for us, and David H. Baker, I got to make that distinction. And another shout out to Joshua Wolf, our team owner, not actually driving for Grizzly, but still helping us out and putting paints together and doing all that fun stuff for us. So shout out to those two guys.
Or is it all? Treva Vavrovsky getting home a 3rd place finish, an important one. Standing by with Gary Weaver is Dawson Brock, who managed to get himself a top 5 finish.
Yeah, staying here with the number 83 of Dawson Brock, who managed to sneak his way up into the top 5 after getting his car essentially nailed at one point, used a faster pair, and managed to get basically 10 positions up overall. How's that race out there, Dawson?
It was good. It didn't start. It started out that first 180. I can't complain. Everything worked out. I didn't need to use that quick repair until I absolutely needed it there at the end. So unlike some of my other team, they had to use that quick repair later on. I was lucky enough to save that and have it in my back pocket there at the end. It ended up working out. We were able to gain 5 spots on that last restart with a bunch of slower cars in front, and I would love to have stayed up in front from where I was around lap 180, but we can't complain. This is a good finish.
Yeah, top 5 is a great finish overall, especially after 500 miles. There's a very noticeable change throughout the race as the sun started to set.
Yeah, my teammates, we were all talking about how the sun was going down, the track was getting a little bit darker, and it really didn't mess with how these cars drive. You basically foot to the floor, turn left, turn left. But there were times where the sun, with everything changing, it did kind of bother you a little bit if you were really picky with it. A couple times the sun coming through the grandstands, just little things. But we didn't have to make any tire pressure changes or anything like that. The car still handled plenty good.
That is definitely wonderful to hear that the car still handled good, and it did, as well as you managed to come home at top 5. So anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to, friends, sponsors, family?
No, as of right now, I know we don't really have any sponsors as our team. So if anybody's looking to talk to us, we're more than happy to get a sponsor. But other than that, no, it's just Josh helping us out. All the Grizzly guys, we put in a ton of work and get a great setup like this. I mean, without the setup, we're nowhere. We don't have the great qualifying. We don't have the races before this. The guys who just built that setup, amazing work. Josh Wolf, he's technically not under a Grizzly driver, but he's with us and helping us out the entire way. All the guys, just great work this week.
Well, we are going to go ahead and let you go. Congratulations on your top 5 finish.
Yep, top 5 there for Dawson Brock, but into the commentary booth we now bring Jeroen Kaiser, 6th place. Jeroen, it looked for all the world with about 10 laps to go or so that you were right in there and had a great shot at victory. However, getting around with Matthew Bunn, a big incident happens. Just talk us through your part of it. We got a copy? We don't have a copy of Jeroen Kaiser at the moment, which is a little bit of a shame. Instead, we're going to bring in Josh Wolf into the conversation. Josh, it's 8th position. You've seen a few of your team mates, I guess you could call it, in sense of the team you own, get some really good positions. But ultimately, it's for you a very up and down day, which saw you laps down and back up forward.
Yeah, I had a little issue with connection with the driver that put me that lap down. Just a whole bunch of damage. I did end up getting that caution that got me be able to repair, and then I think shortly after that got another caution to get back on the lead lap. So it's kind of up and down, but 8th place is great. Definitely better than last year. So.
You definitely did a lot better than last year, but of course finding yourself in Torque Freak Racing colours and trying to make yourself as much of an availability as possible. But talk us through the final few laps there, because you found yourself with 2 to go, probably about 4 wide, which is never the best thing heading into 1.
Oh no, I was right behind Kurt, kind of starting off, and he was slow, so I was trying to make up as many spots and not lose a whole bunch, and I went to go outside and just not really much room. I was trying to give Kurt enough room, and I didn't really see if we were 4 wide or 3 wide. I just kind of closed up very quickly with David on the outside. So not really, down to the end of the race, not really much. I'm trying to get as much as I could and just made contact there.
And, of course, 2 Sebring hours coming up next in the championship, then looking to get yourself over to about 1/4 distance scored in terms of where you've been at Daytona, or the 2 races at Daytona. Now moving over to Sebring, maybe a little bit more bumpy, maybe a bit more difficult, especially when it's a Camel GT format, so you got Audis and Nissans to work with. Just how much of a difficult challenge is it going to be going into some classic vehicles?
Last year was fairly difficult running the 2.4 with them here, so I'm sure the bumpy surface will be make it a little bit more a challenge. I'm actually looking forward to it. I love racing on tracks that are very challenging, and so I'm looking forward to that and kind of see if we can keep this momentum up.
Well, hopefully we will see that for you. Josh Wolf coming home with a top 10 finish, which he will be incredibly happy about getting. We're going to see very quickly if Dave Walsh is still around for interviews. Dave, do you have a copy of us? No. Okay, that's the understanding of that. We're just going to bring then into conversation Jared Morgan, who has had a very up and down day, and that day ends 6 laps down in 23rd position. Jared, what happened to you out there, buddy?
A bit of bad luck as usual, Jake. It's plate racing. It does happen. I had a little optimism about halfway in, and then I got caught up in that big pile up there. Someone net-coded me from down low and shot me to the fence. I had to put about half of the wheel to get around the turn under yellow, so that was not a good sign.
Oh, not a good sign at all, but you've been seeing how a lot of drivers up and down this field had troubles here today. Cautions are plenty with 13. Just in terms of you having to navigate through a lot of that being towards the rear of the field, do you feel like maybe drivers were trying to be maybe a little bit too greedy around the track, maybe just got a little bit unfortunate? Why do you think there was an abundance of cautions here today?
To be honest, a little of everything. Some inexperience to a point as well. I know plate racing isn't most European drivers' forte. Not even mine, really, but I'm an oval driver. Still, a little bit more give and a little less take might have been good, especially on the bottom. I noticed what everybody wanted. As for me, just giving up the bottom was not what I wanted to do, but being that I was 30 miles an hour off, really didn't have a lot of choice.
Well, you didn't have much choice, but you're heading over to Sebring at the turn of the month of March. So in terms of where Sebring's going to leave you, Nissan or Audi?
Well, because I can't get the Audi to shift gears properly, I guess I'll be driving the Nissan, although I'm not a big fan of that particular family of cars. I'm more looking forward to Bristol Motor Speedway with the Super Lates this year, actually.
Of course, Short Track Nationals being round 4 of the championship. A pleasure to join us. Jared Morgan there, joining us then from a 23rd place position. Very quickly, just had noticed that, Dave, I believe you can hear us now.
Yes, I can. I got you.
You've got us. Well, you had the lead for quite a fair amount of this race. You had complete control of your teammate, but it seems like you had a stab in the back.
Yeah, we seem to have one of the quickest cars, if not the quickest, especially if we got 3 of us hooked up on the top. We dropped back at one stage all the way to the back, and 10 laps later we were back at the front. So once we got to the front, it was fairly hard to actually get the lead and get onto the bottom, but we were able to stick there, even if it was just me and Riley like it was later in the race. We were able to just stick with the front, even if it's 2 of us, and then no one else would help. But then obviously once we got the lead, Riley was pushing me. We were pushing fairly hard, and we'd actually managed to pull away a couple tenths from the guys behind, and then he just hooked me, and that was me into the wall. At that stage, I still had a fast repair though, so I used that, and then just got cut up in the next caution, and that was me just done. Engine was blown by that stage, so yeah.
A disappointing result for you, though, in the end, but you do have yourself the opportunity to go out there and make something happen, maybe at Sebring for the 2 hours. Is that something that you're looking into, and more importantly, Nissan or Audi?
It'll be Nissan for me. I know, it's probably my best car. I'm usually fairly quick in it, not very consistent, but whenever I've run Camel GT, I've usually been up near the front, if not at the front, until I either wreck it or win it. So I know Riley is going to do the toolkit for the Audi, but I'm going to be in the Nissan, and I may do the toolkit for the Nissan as well. So high expectations for Sebring.
Well, hopefully we'll see a bounce back in form there for you. It is Dave Walsh who ends up with retirement come the end of this event. But unfortunately, here on the iRacing Esports Network, that's all that we're going to have time for here this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever you are around the world. A massive thanks, though, to all that have got this done for us. Firstly, to Andwern Designs, the official graphics partners here at RaceSpot TV, with ATVO and Apgeneer, the official graphics engine. Live timing and scoring is brought to you by Nick Thislan, with animations done by Simon Grossman. And, of course, Istvan Ballo's TrackCams 22. Make sure that you check them out. From Gary Weaver and Paul Smith, I am Jake Sperry, and my goodness me, what a fantastic bit of racing we've had at Daytona. Not the only racing you'll get, as on Tuesday, the start of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing, gets fully into view. We've seen the draft, we've seen the names. Will it be a 5th for Ray Alfala? Will Ryan Loser climb the mountain? Zelensky maybe? Keegan Leahy stepping up to the plate? The only place you can find out is by watching on the iRacing Esports Network. But It's Dan Marcantonio who proves Daytona is absolutely anyone's. Last to first here today, and what a race we have been able to have. So long from Daytona.